right, Cooper? Yes. The tiniest possibility of seeing Wolf again excites me. That doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Honestly, it might.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where we are continuing our season of Christopher Nolan with part 2 of our exploration of Interstellar. My name is Steve Morris. I am a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host and voiceover artist down here in San Diego, California. And Steve, we are ready to put on our spacesuits. It's time to go.
I think this movie is structured so well, which is, it's the first 30 plus minutes is on Earth, and then you launch, and that is where we just did. But before we launch, we have to thank our supporters on Patreon. They are like the NASA of the Cine-Files. Without them and the folks on Apple Podcasts, we could not make this show. We could not do all the research that we do. We couldn't spend the time and the effort necessary to make a show that we can be proud of and we hope you enjoy. And so thank you to all of them for their support.
Yeah, absolutely. And another way you can support us here on the show, if you can't support us through the Patreon, is when you listen to the show, if you listen to it with the ads, if you hear a product or service that you really want to try out or use, please remember to use our code when you reach out to them, and we encourage you to reach out to them. Use our code because you get a certain percentage off, and you'll indicate to them that you support their company and support the Cine-Files, and they'll keep coming back every month to support us here on the show, which we would appreciate very much. And there's a lot of great things with right now, True Diagnostic, Quince. There's a lot of things we've got there, better help for people to use and could help them in their lives as well.
And where we left off, we had just launched into space. We have Coop at the controls, along with Dr. Brand, Doyle, and Romilly. And we also have Tars, who is seated in, you can see that he has his little spot in the Ranger cockpit. And I love that this is where we're going to start to get a bit of Tars's personality, because he says,
"Plenty good, plenty of slaves for my robot colony. Give him the humor settings, we fit in better with his unit. Pizza relaxes us. A giant, sarcastic robot. What a great idea."
Which I think has to be a little bit of a reference to 2001 kind of subtly.
Of course it is. It absolutely is, yes. Well, and this next thing too, because he says, "I have a cue light I can use when I'm joking if you like." Well, Hal was an eye and a light. That is what Hal was,
Yeah.
He said, and speaking of 2001 references.
Yeah, you can use it to find your way back into the ship after I blow you out the airlock.
Now that is clearly a Hal reference.
Yes, absolutely.
What's your humor setting, Doris? That's 100%. Let's bring it on down to 75, please.
What's weird about this is that when I saw the movie the first time, I didn't have an AI bot that made jokes with me. And now I do.
Oh,
and it's weird to go and every once in a while, Claude is actually funny. And most of the time it falls completely flat, but it's like I am actually interacting with a artificial intelligence who has been programmed to make jokes with me to make me feel more comfortable, which is exactly what Tars just said.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is why I stay away from that. But yeah, more power to you. Claude and I are on a professional basis. That's it.
Huh? Start throwing some jokes his way.
Nope.
See what happens.
Nope.
And then we go through the stage separations, and I love when the second stage separates that we go from the rattling, roaring, loud moment into kind of the quiet of space, and it almost feels like there's a breath at that moment.
It's also letting the audience catch up, because all of the stuff has happened and now he's going. But let's take a moment to kind of understand what's really going on now that he's made this decision,
So we know that Christopher Nolan really likes real things. He will use CG, and obviously there's CG throughout many of his films, but his goal is to always do things real. So naturally, for building all of these spaceships, space stations, and et cetera, they've built miniatures like they would, going back to 2001 and before.
Right.
But there's some of these shots, for instance, if you look at the shots where the camera is placed kind of behind and to the left, the Ranger's tail as it flies, with the Ranger in the foreground, that is probably not a miniature. And let me tell you how this happened. The exterior scenes, both on Miller's planet and on Man's planet, were both shot in Iceland. And they shot in Iceland because that's where they shot Batman Begins, and he loved those icy hills and the glaciers where some of the battles with Ra's al Ghul are. And so he says, well, let's go back there. And I'll get to it later, but they found the water location there as well. So in Hollywood, they're building these giant ships, full size, and they're hand carved. It's out of foam. They're very complicated. They weigh several tons. They finish building them. They transport them to Iceland, where they do all the exterior shoots. Now, normally, in any normal sane person's movie, when you're done shooting all the exteriors where you need these giant ships, you just break apart the ships, or maybe you leave them in storage just in case you need a pickup, but you're not going to use them again. You use them. And Nolan goes, I think we should ship them all the way back to Hollywood. And they're like, why? It's like, I think it'd be a good idea. So they ship these giant ships back to Hollywood, and Nolan, I think he had this plan the whole time. He's like, hey, now that we got them in the studio and we have these big gimbals, which are these big machines to tilt the interiors of the Endurance and all of those things, and we saw them on Crimson Tide, we saw them on Hunt for October, lots of things use a big gimbal. Those gimbals are used to shoot interior sets. So you can see someone walking around on the spaceship or the submarine as it's turning and twisting, and they used them in Inception too. The whole hallway battle, that's on a big gimbal. But Nolan goes, I think gimbals get a little boring when you're shooting them with interiors. He thinks he thinks if you push them too hard, they end up just looking like Star Trek camera shakes, which I don't think is true at all. But this is what Nolan says, and Nolan's eye is better than mine. And he said, what if we hook these spaceships up to the gimbal? So we have a full-size Ranger. So they put the full-size Ranger on a gimbal that had a little control unit. So essentially you could fly it, tilt it in every single different direction. And Nolan had a lot of fun with this. And he said, let's film this. So instead of filming a miniature for the Ranger, when you see several of the shots, it's really the whole full-size Ranger with Nolan at the controls of the thing, tilting it left and right. And the cool thing about it is, in particular, when you see, and there are lots of shots like this, both when we head to the wormhole and later on, where you see the sunlight playing and moving across the surface of the Ranger. They look really beautiful. Yeah. Well, part of why that looks so great is because it actually is it's not a miniature. It's a full-size ship that we're moving around. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
That is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. And we go through, we're in space and we're doing all sorts of checks. But one of the things that happens is as they're flying, suddenly they go to do something else, and all the pilots' chairs they're sitting in rise up into a secondary position near the ceiling, so instead of controlling it sitting upright looking forward, you're now kind of prone looking up through the top of the Ranger.
Yeah.
Which totally reminds me, by the way, of the Batmobile, where it has the two positions and it goes forward into the thing.
Good point. Yes, absolutely.
So all this is done practically. This is all built, and they really, really spent time actually trying to figure out what all the controls did and how the ship really worked. And it reminded me, by the way, do you remember in Galaxy Quest, there's the guy who is the helmsman, he's the Sulu part, and he has to control the controls. And he goes, but I don't know how to control the controls. Yeah. And they're like, well, what did you do on the ship? He's like, well, I made up stuff that this would do this and this would do that. And then he had to remember the stuff that he made up in order to fly the ship that actually was controlled that way.
Right.
Well, they actually went, how do we control this ship? And they went from both NASA and SpaceX, what are all the controls? How would all this work? And so all the switches and stuff, I don't know all the switches, but a lot of it is like actually figured out there. It's not just set dressing. This is for doing this. Wow. Yeah.
For the 5% of the audience that would actually, kind of pick that up, because I can't show a majority of the audience, like, you've given me the idea that he's a great pilot. I'm just going to trust that he knows what he's doing and he knows he's pushing the buttons, because I never pay attention to that unless they make a big deal and put it in focus that you have to know what certain buttons are supposed to do. I never pay attention to the reality of them clicking on buttons or whatever, But hey, you want that element to it. That's what makes him a great filmmaker, Christopher Nolan.
I mean, there's so many decisions a director makes, which is fractions of a percentage of improvement. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like everyone thinks like you have one big idea and that makes the movie great. And it's like, no, this idea made the movie infinitesimally better. And I'll give two ways of thinking about this. I think one is, it's funny. We just did a short where we were talking about directing, and I brought up Rick Rubin, who likes to create limitations, a great music producer, on his artists because it sparks creativity. Well, the big limitation on Interstellar is we want to do real science.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you never know where some choice is actually, you don't know where the dividends are going to come from. You do a whole bunch of stuff and maybe it goes nowhere. And then you do a couple of things and it goes somewhere. And the other example I'll bring is for movies that people have been begging us to do forever. We want to do them, but it's the Lord of the Rings. We just know it's going to be a really big thing. Yeah. I remember when I worked on the DVDs of those movies that they did, I mean, the amount of work the armorers and all those people did and the attention to detail is off the charts. And one of them is, I forget the king who's from the horse people from Rohan.
Oh, yeah.
And he has that beautiful armor with all of that inlay and all of that carving. Well, they carved all those carvings are the stories of his kingdom. Right. Like they actually are the history of Rohan on his none of which we'll ever notice. But they actually put engravings on the inside of the armor that would never be seen by anybody except the actor. And what they said is they were saying, like, anything we can do to make this feel more real for the actors is going to pay dividends in the movie. Now, does it or does it not? I don't know.
As an actor, I will say, or as a former actor, I will say, I mean, I put on, the outfit matters.
It does.
But going that deep for a theatrical film, I think is a little much, as I'm reminded of Laurence Olivier to Dustin Hoffman. Yeah. Just act, dear boy, and that should be enough. But if you're going to nerd out, you might as well nerd out all the way. If New Line's going to pay for it, you might as well take advantage of it. And who knows? Maybe some of these actors really loved these books, and so seeing the nuance of this stuff inside of the uniforms, there's this kind of subconscious feeling of actually bringing this character to life in a very real and grounded way that is a part of their performance. So it's very possible.
Well, this is why the one-to-one idea of movies, well, you do this and get that, it just doesn't, it's not true. And because the other thing that happens, I think, is when, and I remember when we did Apollo 13, this was definitely the case. If one group of crew members or cast people or writers are taking something really, really seriously and trying to really, really get it right, well, then other people will start to do that too. You create it's the culture on the set that you create. But again, we don't know where those dividends are going to come out. It might be like the King of Rohan. There might be one line where, as he was saying it, he was thinking about that engraving, and he said it slightly different than he had done on the previous take, and that's the take you use. We don't know.
We don't know. You're right.
Yeah. So we're flying a little farther, and Brand seems to be sort of in a somber moment, and Coop turns to her and says,
"It's hard leaving everything, my kids, your father.
We're going to be spending a lot of time together.
We should learn to talk."
Which is totally obviously like that's what we expect. It's like, okay, we're going to be stuck together. We should get to know each other, become friends. And she says,
"Emma, not to. Just being honest."
That is a very surprising line from her.
Well, I think this is the difference between scientists and pilots, right? I mean,
yes, great point.
Right? That's that. Coop is very much like, I'm in charge here. I'm going to have conversations. Relax, everybody. And she's much more like, look, we got some real shit to do here, man. And I don't need to be getting to know all these. I don't need to do that. And there are some, people who are really deep into science and are like, just don't need to know too much about people, just want to focus on their mission. And I like the way this sets up the relationship. It's more of a conflict, it's more of a challenge. It's not an overt conflict. They're not going to battle each other, but there is cross purposes, which I think is good to have when you're going forward in a film like this, because she immediately gets your respect. She has the haircut is so brilliant. And the way Anne is playing everything very understated but solid, it's smart. It's really smart.
It's funny. I hadn't thought of it till you said it. But if I suddenly had to go into space in a tiny tin can with 3 other humans for years of my life and never see anyone else, I would have some barriers. I would, I'm a introvert. I like my time alone. I like my own thoughts. I'm not a person who wants to instantly share with every single new person I meet. I might be like Dr. Brand.
You might be, but it depends on if you're Cooper or Brand. And by that, I mean your position on the ship. I think if you were
That's
a captain,
exactly right. Yeah.
Right? I think if you were a captain, you would make more of an effort to talk, connect, get to know people, blah, 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 because it's important for you when you're directing, as you've told me before on sets. You're just connecting with people and what have you because you need them to do stuff. But if you were more Brand, where you're not the captain, I think you would actually be, as you were saying, like a little more guarded. Yeah.
Your analysis is 100% right. That is, I would feel very responsible to check in with each person to make sure everyone is okay. But the other thing I would do is, I mean, other than going to sleep in the, stasis chamber or whatever, I would figure out some way to have some privacy, because I would have to be able to detach, or I wouldn't survive it.
Hey, Tars, what's your honesty parameter?
90%.
90%.
Absolute honesty isn't always the most diplomatic, nor the safest form of communication with emotional beings.
Which is true. No lie detected there.
Yeah. And I like that Brand has a little smirk on her face and as if saying, like, yeah, that's the way it goes, bud.
we're heading towards Endurance. They unstrap and we see some zero-G. There was no vomit comet used in Interstellar like they did in Apollo 13. None of this is real zero-G, but they did have a lot of time practicing the wire work, practicing how they were doing all this stuff. They built essentially, because when you're rehearsing for a movie or for a play, what they'll do is on the rehearsal spaces, they'll tape everything out so you know what the shape of the location that you're in is, and they'll try to bring in maybe some furniture or things so that you can get used to it for when you go to the real set. Well, the thing about rehearsing for 3D space is that it's all vertical. So they built a set, they built a mock-up essentially of what the set would look like for them to float around with, including where all the handholds are. So again, this is a very practical set. And so you will look that if you look around the interior of the Ranger and the interior of the Endurance, you'll see all these handholds so that people in zero-G would be able to find a place to grab before they go to the next one. And so all of that kind of movement, they're practicing as they're rehearsing.
Wow.
And now we're heading into the Endurance, and we're about to have our first space lock. And you can't not think of 2001 when watching this sequence,
Yeah. But everyone, I mean, you have to pay attention. Some of you who are rewatching the film, pay attention to everyone's actions. And the fact that Nolan is cutting to all of them to see their reactions. Brand closes her eyes as they're connecting. Coop is, just kind of doing his thing, swaggering into this thing. And what's Wes Bentley's character's name again? Doyle. Doyle is looking out in wonderment out the window of it all and making so there's all these different reactions. We're not checking in too much with what's his face, but everyone else we're cutting to see their reactions to all this stuff. So that's is it Wiley? What's his name? The
Romilly.
Romilly. That's it. Romilly. Yeah, Romilly. Yeah.
And now we're heading, and of course Doyle is the guy in charge of the space docking, and it is very clear from his performance that he is stressed out about it because he's only done this like in a simulator or something. And my guess is if they don't get a good lock, Earth dies. You know, like the stakes. I mean, they might have a second shot at it, but this is a big deal. And they move in, they lock, which is great. Big sigh of relief. And now we're heading over to the Endurance, and the design of Endurance is based very much on the space station, on actual NASA space stations that have been used, the same technology. Like Nolan never wanted to create sci-fi futuristic stuff. He wanted everything grounded in how it was done. And part of it is the way a space station like this is built is you can't launch that whole space station up into space. It's too big and it's too heavy. All of it is modular. So that's what it looks like is there are these pieces that were assembled together in space.
Wow.
And this whole thing, by the way, I mentioned a gimbal before. Well, this whole thing is on a gimbal. It's a 135-foot set. It's kind of arc-shaped, and it's done so it could rotate full 45 degrees.
I also think he did this so that you would see how it affects them physically. Like if you watch Matthew McConaughey's face, you can tell the blood is rushing to his head a little bit. The vein is popping out at the top. So it adds that level of realism to what the movie is telling you is going on. And so you could have easily, like, they didn't do this for Space 1999 or any of these other damn shows or movies we've seen, you know what I'm saying? But for this one, Nolan wanted the authenticity to, even on a subconscious level, for you to feel that. And so seeing how Cooper's face is reacting and his body's reacting to this, I think is important to let us feel how real this is and what they're going through,
I mean, there's two kinds of science fiction. There's hard science fiction. There's lots of kinds of science fiction, but there's hard science fiction and soft science fiction. And hard science fiction cares about science a lot, and other science fiction really doesn't. Star Wars does not care very much about science.
Right.
Like but The Martian and Hail Mary
Yeah.
and Interstellar really do. Interstellar
yeah.
becomes more fantastical than those two, but it's still trying to be grounded. And I think
Yes.
you feel that when you're watching it,
Yeah.
Now it's time to spin the endurance, which of course is to create artificial gravity. It's all beautifully done. And they actually can feel their weight. And then Dr. Brand finds Romilly.
Hey, you okay?
Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah, I just need a minute.
And he's clearly not doing well.
Okay, I think we have some Dramamine in the hab pot. I'm just gonna go get that. Might be in the cryo bay. I'll just be a sec.
Hey, Brian,
Yeah.
bring a lot.
Yeah, but that's our first hint, right? That Romilly is going to be our unstable X factor in all of this. That he is the one that's physically going to feel the and that's what I mean by the instability, the physical instability. He is going to feel the weight of all of this as we go along, and it's going to add that little edge of like, what is he going to do? What is going to happen? How is he going to react to this? How is it going to affect him doing his job? And I think that's good to have that little dangerous subplot running through this thing. Yeah.
Well, and what ends up happening is that even though he seems like physically maybe the least tough, of
able
the
to handle
characters,
this. Yeah.
in the end, he's a rock. Romilly is rock solid.
Yes.
But so giving us this moment of doubt here is a great setup.
Yeah. Agreed.
And now we're getting our first message from the professor.
Amelia, be safe. Give my regards to Dr. Mann.
In this moment, when Professor Brandt says, tell Dr. Mann or give my best to Dr. Mann.
Yes.
As we find out later in the movie, this is all a lie. And so how much of this is meant to kind of burnish the lie, so to speak, by telling, give my best, Dr. Mann, giving them hope, go, you're going to find Dr. Mann, all this kind of stuff. Like when you take these moments and when you rewatch the film, when he reveals the thing on his deathbed that he reveals and you rewatch, it's almost in a way emotionally draconian what he's doing to everybody by reinforcing this lie. And then to end it with this go gentle, do not go gently into that good night, the Dylan Thomas poem. It is almost reaffirming this. And he's really reaffirming this with his own daughter, who I imagine has heard him recite that poem ad nauseum his entire life. And so this is a fascinating thing, how deep they are instilling the lie into all of them before they head out. And although this moment is, for us, when you're watching it the first time, really like, it's, yes, fight to the end, fight for blah, blah, blah. The person saying it is saying it from a place of lies.
Yeah.
And so it's a fascinating thing to look at. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts are on that.
So first of all, the fact that he sent his daughter on a lie.
That's another thing. Yes.
Is a huge thing.
Without telling her.
And as you said, the whole point of the poem is fight to stay alive. Don't give up. Don't quit. The one thing I don't think the Dr. Mann thing is a lie, because that part of it, they still have to find a viable planet for Plan B.
True.
Like all those other, all of the find the planet that we can go to. That's all true. Mm-hmm. It's just all of the people on Earth are going to die. That's the part that he's lying about. Well, actually,
I find the hypocrisy of that. The man who has doomed everyone to death is reciting that poem about raging against the dying of the light when he has given up for humanity in order to save the species, the current humanity, in order to possibly save the species in the future.
Lazarus. But you know what? What just occurred to me though. Yeah. You know what he did do? He actually sent his daughter off on the one chance to live. Because everybody on Earth is going to die. It is conceivable that one of these astronauts could survive.
Yeah. Rewatching it the two times, we watched it for this conversation. This film is kind of an anti-science film for all of its advocation for science and that science can save us. Science is the only way it can happen. Like later on in the film, what do they say? You only got this. Well, look, science got us this far, right? When Dr. Brand is pushing back on Cooper, but there's also later on in the movie that this is all based on a lie and that this guy made a decision for everybody else, and there was an arrogance, as Cooper says, to that decision. And then what man pulls as we get later on in the film, like there is this kind of underlying thing of the irresponsibility of humanity with science and how it can be used in a negative way, and that these people are supposedly the most intelligent people in the world who did this, also doomed the planet and gave up on current humanity in order for the chance to possibly extend the life of humanity down the road. So it's an interesting debate to have within the movie, using what Professor Brand does and him using this poem, which is supposed to inspire you. But when you go back and rewatch the film, it feels a little like a bait and switch, you know?
I mean, by the time I get to the end of this movie, in the fifth time I hear that poem or whatever it is, I hate it. I really do. I have a
which
strong,
is so interesting.
Yeah, I have a strong, yeah, and that's why I went on YouTube to listen to Rodney Dangerfield deliver it, so I could like the poem again. I have an answer. I have a thought about your question, but I'm going to save it because there's a line coming up that I feel like it relates to.
It looks good for your trajectory. We've calculated 2 years to Saturn.
It's a lot of Dramamine.
And we see them working, and then we hear Michael Caine, and man, this poem takes me a lot of places as we hear it, which is we hear Do Not Go Gently from Dylan Thomas, which is an incredible poem.
Mm-hmm.
Most famously, in my opinion, recited by Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School. That is my favorite rendition of this particular poem. But Michael Caine also does a nice job.
Yes, he does. Well, you know, different readings for different movies, but yes, absolutely. And for those of you, because some of you may not know this poem, which is something to consider here from Dylan Thomas. You know, Steve and I have heard this our whole lives. You know, you mentioned, right, there's also Independence Day, for those some of you remember how the president uses that poem a little bit.
I hate the way it comes into that. I hear, it's funny. So the NPR Politics podcast, which I listen to on the 4th of July, reads the president's speech from Independence Day every year. And every year, it's particularly, there's a rhyming thing that happens in it.
Yeah.
You know, like I hate the parts of the way that speech is written.
Do not go gentle into that good night. I love the way Pullman does that. But this, as Steve mentioned, this poem is a poem from Dylan Thomas, who was a Welsh poet. And it's in the form of a villanelle. And it's one of his best-known works. It was published in the journal The Bodegeg Obscur in 1951. He wrote the poem in 1947 while visiting Florence with his family. And it was included alongside other works by Thomas in Country Sleep and other poems and collected poems. And it entered the public domain in countries outside the United States on January 1st of 2024. So it only recently entered the public domain, which is very interesting to consider. And it's been suggested that the poem that Thomas wrote the poem for his dying father, but his father didn't die until 5 years later. So there's been some debate on that overall. And this poem has come in for some analysis because, of course, the most obvious analysis is fight to stay alive, fight to stay alive. But there have been other schools of thought that think this poem, much like the black hole, the circular thing, is that it's a journey to accepting that death is an inevitability of life. And not so much about raging against, like, stay alive for as long as you can. It's more about the journey you go on, feeling that way, and then by the end, accepting that you can't live forever. And that that's also an important part of life, is accepting that death is a part of it. So it's fascinating to look at the film, and to poem rather. And I think it's a great poem to throw in here in terms of what it can symbolize on multiple levels to the actions that are going on in the movie and the journey that they're on here as these astronauts trying to save the species.
Well, that circular interpretation fits perfectly with Interstellar. I mean, you know, because Interstellar is a circle, you know?
Right, exactly.
We have the ghost.
Though wise men at their end, no dark is right. Because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
We hear huge organ build before we fade to black. Super good. I'll tell you a little more about this organ. So it was recorded in Temple Church in London. And how they picked it as Hans Zimmer is making his tour of giant pipe organs is he really felt the big, you know, because they has the big, huge pipes for the really, really low bass notes. And he thought they looked like rockets. And so he thought this was appropriate. And the dude who was the organist there is a guy named Roger Sayer. And
Yeah.
Roger Sayre, Hans Zimmer says this guy is a brilliant musician. And if Hans Zimmer says you're a brilliant musician, that's pretty cool. Because the thing about what he's done is he is the organist for this church. So if there is a wedding at the church, he is playing the organ. If there is an event at the church, he is playing the organ.
Yeah.
If there's a service at the church, he'll play the organ. Sometimes they have concerts with the organ. But one thing he hasn't done is score a movie with the organ. It is totally a different kind of playing than what he has done before. And what Zimmer and Nolan did was, I mean, it sounds like both of them, which doesn't surprise me, were just fascinated by this machine. I think it was built in the 1920s. And this organ is so big that essentially, particularly because of the acoustics and the reverberation, the entire church is really the instrument. You are sitting physically inside of this instrument. And so what they did was they're like, show us everything this thing can do, which it can do a ton of things.
Right.
And he was like, well, it could, I don't do this because it doesn't sound good musically. And they're like, no, do that. We want to hear all the weird stuff. Like, what if you put together that and that? What if you play that and that? What if you open this and close this? They're just experimenting it. And Hans Zimmer is kind of cataloging all the noises that this thing could make. He describes a pipe organ as sort of the first synthesizer, you know, that's kind of how he started to think about it. And as they started to understand what this machine could do, they got more and more adventurous about the sound until finally, when they recorded this, they didn't record the organ and then go off and record, you know, the whole orchestra over at Abbey Road Studios or something. Right. They did have separate recordings with just the players, but they also brought 20 or 30 musicians into the church to record while the organ is playing. Because what they say, and this is, you know, kind of deep in terms of sound and acoustics, but whatever space you're in affects the sound of the thing. Yeah, and they wanted the sound of the violins and the percussion and the musicians to have the same spatial feeling as the organ. And if they recorded them separately, they wouldn't be able to do that. And they said this organ was so powerful that when it plays those deep bass notes, the windows of the church would bend out.
Oh, wow.
You could feel the wind of the sound blow through the church as when it's really going. It sounds kind of amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's how it feels sometimes during one of my bowel movements. But listen, I want to ask you.
All right, old man.
Sorry, Interstellar guys. Exactly. The windows do bend in or bend out depending on what's happening. But
sorry, go on.
That's a lot of Dramamine.
So we're looking at the beautiful Earth, and of course, they paid lots of attention to actual rotation speeds and the spinning speeds of the Endurance and how that would all look, just like Kubrick did for 2001. And Coop says,
So alone.
We have each other. Dr. Man had it worse.
No, I mean, man. Perfect planet. We are not going to find another one like her.
No, it's not like looking for a new condo.
I don't think people realize just how incredibly unique the planet Earth is. You know, the fact that only now are we even finding planets, and we still haven't found anything like Earth.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? This past Sunday, there's a 6.5 hour, or maybe it's 8.5 hour video on YouTube from PBS that is a compilation of all their space exploration specials and documentaries. And I sat there for 3 hours watching it the other day and just was blown away about how much I don't know of the stuff you're talking about, Steve, of the planets they're still discovering, of all the stuff they're still finding, of the construction of how these planets or the rings around Saturn. Yeah. It's a fascinating watch. I should have taken a gummy and I would have finished the whole thing. The 3 hours I did it for, I was absolutely just totally entranced by what I was watching. So you're absolutely right, Steve. This space exploration is so necessary, so important, and it's one of the most fascinating things we can do as human beings, and it just speaks to our curiosity as a species, and we should never lose that.
And as Brand and Coop are talking, we watch some of the other, Doyle and Romilly stepping into these things, and there's water coming up, and they don't explain it very much at all. But we start to go like, oh, this is their sleep chamber. This is what they're going to be frozen or whatever is about to happen. And I love, by the way, Doyle's look as Romilly goes under this thing of just like, oh boy. Because I'm telling you right now, I would not. This would be very hard for me to lay down in that wet bed and know that you're going to be put asleep and not have any idea if you're ever going to wake up, you know?
Yeah, and it's very similar to The Abyss. Remember when they put the helmet on and put the water and you drown,
Jesus.
but you then the water it's so similar to that. Yeah.
Yep. And we hear a little bit more detail. We hear that the first planet they're going to get towards is Laura Miller's planet, and that she had biology. And then we talk about the other planet.
Wolf Edmonds is here.
Tell me about Edmund.
Oh, Wolf's a particle physicist.
And Cooper gives her this extra little look.
Yeah.
And what is happening here is that at this moment, I guess, he has figured out that she is secretly in love with Wolf Edmonds.
Yeah. Kind of sensed it. Yeah.
It seems real thin to me. Like this, but like that is what has happened. And this will be a key plot point later on.
Oh yeah. Later on. Yeah.
And then we ask about Man. And we hear that he's remarkable. He's the best of us. He's an inspiration. And then she says something really interesting. She says,
scientists, explorers. That's what I love. Out there, we face great odds. Death, but not evil.
No, you don't think nature can be evil?
No. Formidable, frightening, but no, not evil.
So what do you think, John? Can nature be evil?
Yes. When you look at how killer whales play with seals before they kill them, bouncing them back and forth, torturing them. If you watch enough nature specials, you can believe that animals can be evil for sure. Nature can be evil for sure. Do I think Mother Nature is evil? That's a separate conversation. No. But I think animals who are a part of nature can be evil for sure. Yes.
I think that's a really good answer. And I was, when you started to say yes, I was going to argue with you, but I actually think that example of the killer whale is if they're playing with another animal and hurting them before killing them. Yeah, maybe. Because my instinct is with Dr. Brand and say, look, nature is just nature. Right. And the reason I didn't answer your question before is I was going to relate it to this, but you might have just blown apart my whole argument. But my answer about the science thing, I don't think science is evil. I think people are evil. I think science is neutral,
Right.
But you just pointed out how nature isn't really neutral. Well, actually, no. I think we're in agreement. You said Mother Nature is not evil.
Mother Nature is not evil.
Yeah. Like I think science is a tool, and you can use that atom to power a city, or you can use that atom to destroy a city.
Well, that's why I said it's anti-science, but I don't mean anti-science in the sense of, well, I guess I should have clarified. I don't mean anti-science in that it's like, don't be intelligent, don't learn this stuff, don't learn. No, I'm saying the people who are the representative, like the scientists themselves, I think it's maybe an anti-scientist movie in some ways because of what maybe it's an anti-human being movie in some ways because of what the human beings do with that science. And that's what frustrates people nowadays. Oh, actually, it's frustrated people for centuries, I guess, in our world. People with knowledge, people with power, what they do with that knowledge, what they do with that power, and the decisions they make without consulting the rest of humanity is frustrating. Because I am so sick of these tropes that we cannot tell people the full truth because society can't handle it. We have fucking survived wars, fucking plagues, famine, sickness, everything you could possibly, nuclear bombs. We've survived all of it as a species. This idea that if you show me all the files on the UFOs, we're not going to be able to survive. It's all bullshit, okay? It's all bullshit in order to have power over the populace. And I think it's nonsense. We should know everything about everything all the time. We should be trusted as that as human beings. It doesn't mean there won't be like riots or other kind of shit. It doesn't mean that. But we have a right to know it. And then we'll decide what we do with that information. And so I do get frustrated by that when I see people do that in our society,
I mean, if we're facing terrible things, to me, the only way we can solve those terrible things is to know what they are.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to solve them by lying to the population as if nothing's going on. Like, I mean, this movie is also a perfect example of a bunch of humans work together, take tremendous risks, do something incredibly difficult, and save the planet. Like humans, I mean, the lesson to me is never like, oh, humans are evil or humans are good, or humans are heroic or they're not. Humans are capable of both. And this movie has both. I mean, Dr. Mann, who we've just heard is remarkable and the greatest leader. And like, I am certain that everything we've heard about him from their perspective was true. And I think he was a remarkable person and a great leader. And that guy's going to break in the most horrible. I mean, like, what happens with Dr. Mann? We'll get to it, obviously. But like, yeah.
But every person in power in this movie abuses their power. Every person in power, right? Like, even go all the way down to the first grade teacher or the school teacher who is teaching false shit about the space program. Like, every person in power in this movie is deceptively corrupt to the people below them. And that's the thing that I think is an interesting thing to notice about the people in power in this film.
You know what I think they all have in common? From the teacher up to Michael Caine and Dr. Mann?
Yeah.
Is they all think they know best.
Yes. Which is always dangerous.
Yeah. It's like, I think I know a lot of stuff. I don't think I know best. And I'm certain, I am 100% certain there are hundreds of things I'm wrong about. Maybe thousands of things. So, there are things you know about that I don't know about. And without you to tell me that I fucked up, I never get, I think about this all the time. It's like, I'm sorry, this will be a little rant of mine, but it's something, but like, there are many people out there who hate to be told that they're wrong and want to believe that they're right all the time.
Right. Yeah.
To me, those people are choosing to feel right in this moment in order to be wrong for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And I would rather be told that I'm wrong or admit a mistake in this moment so I could be right for the rest of my life.
It's to me, it's always the Dr. Gower. Is it Gower? Gower in It's a Wonderful Life. If George doesn't come back with the pills to tell him that they're poisoned and endure the slapping on his wrist, Gower is going to kill a child.
Yes.
And so that's the thing when you come back to it, it's like the person in power must listen. Yes, you may not like what they're saying, but it's better that you solve the situation and adjust your thinking on it and be proven wrong so that people don't suffer for it. And that's the thing. You've got to be open to that. Our society is too hung up all across the board, no matter what generation we're talking about, too hung up with trying to be right, and it's frustrating because I'd rather be correct than right. And that we need to start valuing being correct over being right,
Well, and it relates to this movie, is we look at the past with our 2020 hindsight, and it was obvious that these were the right decisions and these were the wrong decisions.
Right.
But it wasn't obvious at the time.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out. FDR doesn't know that the New Deal is going to take us out of the Depression. We don't know what's like, is the choice to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki the right choice or the wrong choice? Well, we know how things work out, but we can never see the counterfactual because we don't get to see what happens if we didn't do that.
Right.
This is, and then we label everyone, and then someone who maybe they did make the right decision, they go, oh, I made the right decision. Everything worked out great. I must always make the right decisions.
Yeah.
Everyone should listen to me from now on. We were just having a conversation for our short about directors who've maybe been around too long, aren't directing the best movies anymore. And it's like, well, they don't know going in if it's going to work. Christopher Nolan doesn't go in. Just the things we're talking about the organ or about all the technology on the thing. He's saying we're going to invest time in that. We don't know if the time is going to pay dividends. And even looking at it now, you and I can't definitively say that having those switches or using the organ or having the musicians in the church is what makes this movie great, because we haven't heard it without those things. You know?
Exactly. And also, just to bring it all, even Cooper, who is in power of his family, you could argue, like, abuses that power by leaving Murph and trying to force Murph to have a resolution so that he could leave with a better conscience.
Yep.
And this is those moments that are little things like that. And, obviously Professor Brand as well. So, yeah.
Well, and what we find out later is that he didn't, it took me multiple viewings to catch this. He didn't tell Murph that he was going to save the world because the world was going to die.
Exactly. Yes.
So of course she was pissed off, and he did to Murph, who is an incredibly smart, mature kid, exactly what you were saying we shouldn't do, which is he didn't inform her of the truth.
Right. And his defense to Dr. Brand later on, when she's pushing back on that, You know, he's like, well, as a father, you're going to realize that, you know, you got to protect your child. Bullshit. I mean, children are open and they learn and they adapt and they understand. You know why? Because children endure the death of parents. Children endure getting cancer themselves. And so children are much more stronger than parents think they are. I think parents forget or get amnesia about how strong they were when they were children and dealing with the trauma of the stuff they were dealing with. So I think I think Cooper is saying something that validates what he did, but I don't think it was the right thing, what he did. And for decades, Murph carried the resentment of it, you know, because of it.
I mean, when someone chooses not to tell their kid that the parent is dying of cancer, and then the parent dies of cancer all of a sudden out of nowhere, that wasn't better. I remember when we had, and I know this digression is now gone on forever, but there's a lot in this film. And when we had the LA fires a year ago, and I was looking at the hills across from my hill and saw big fires, they're still pretty far away, and the winds were crazy. And I had to go to my son, who was 13 at the time, and say, listen, I'm packing my bag, and it might happen that we have to flee this house.
Yep.
And it freaked him out. You know, I mean, he was genuinely like really scared, and it upset him. And I was like, because this is real. I was like, this is happening. And if it happens, it's got to happen soon. It's going to happen fast. And you're got to be ready. I had to tell him, of course, you know. And then after this, we talk about the crew. Yeah, this crew represents the best of humanity. Even me, you know what? We agreed 90%.
This crew represents the best of humanity.
Even me, huh?
You know what? We agreed 90%.
Good. And I love the moment because now when she's heading down to go into suspended animation or whatever.
Let me stay up.
I'll be there in a minute.
Oh, just remember, Coop, you are literally wasting your breath.
Which I love. I think it's a great line. And then he wants to talk to Tars about the trajectory one more time. And Tars basically goes, we've already gone over this. Brand goes down, and we realize he was really stalling with Tars because he wanted to ask a question.
Dr. Brand and Edmonds. They close?
I wouldn't know.
Is it 90% wouldn't know or 10% wouldn't know?
I also have a discretion setting, Cooper.
Which kind of is a confirmation, by the way.
Yeah, 100%.
But not a poker face, Lane.
So Cooper calls Tars slick.
Yeah.
Here's how this came about.
Oh.
One of the guys on set that Matthew McConaughey just really vibed with was Bill Irwin. He just loved Bill Irwin. Was hanging around with Bill Irwin all the time. Was fascinated by him. You want to know what Matthew McConaughey's nickname for Bill Irwin was?
I'm going to guess it was Slick.
You are guessing correctly. Yeah, that's where this comes from, which I love. I love bringing that into.
Yeah, that's great.
Hey, guys. Dad's about to go down for the long nap, so I wanted to give you an update. The Earth looks amazing from here. You can't see any of the dust. I really hope you guys are doing great. I know you're going to get this message. Professor Brand's assured me that you're going to get it to you. Know that I love you.
And as we're hearing that, we cut back to Earth and the farm.
Is it him?
I don't think so, Murph.
And we see the pickup truck pulling up. And of course, Murphy's first reaction is, maybe Dad's coming back. And of course, it's Professor Brand who gets out of the car because he promised to bring the car back.
Hello, Murph.
Why are you in my dad's truck?
He wanted me to bring it for your brother. He sent you a message.
And he's reaching for the message.
Yeah.
And Murph doesn't want to hear it and heads inside.
Murph is a bright spark. Maybe I should fan the flame.
So he is suggesting that Murph basically, as a 10-year-old girl, come to NASA.
Yeah.
She's already making fools of her teachers, so maybe she should come and make a fool out of you.
And I bet she does. I bet Murph does surprise them and make fools out of them and stuff like that. She's that kind of kid. And then we hear that the next time we hear from them, they're going to be around Saturn. And then we cut to the shots of Saturn are mind-blowingly beautiful. Incredible. And I love the tiny dot of the Endurance, which I think he's flying in front of Saturn's rings. It's just gorgeous. Also, very 2001.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. I wonder how much it depended on us knowing 2001.
You know how in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it really helps if you know a little bit about the Manson story?
Right.
And the movie is entirely different if you don't?
Yeah.
I don't think you need any 2001 to watch Interstellar,
No.
but it's nice, you know.
Yes.
It's nice to have that reference. We're back awake. We hear a message from Tom where he talks about farming, and he seems pretty happy about the farming, and then he gets up and leaves, and Donald comes into the shot.
I'm sorry, Coop. I asked Murph to say hi, but she's as stubborn as her old man. We'll try again next time.
And I really like this next moment. Cooper's walking through the Endurance. He's listening to his headphones, and he sees Romilly kind of sitting alone and goes to see him.
This gets to me, Cooper. This. Millimeters of aluminum, that's it, and then nothing. Out there for millions of miles. Won't kill us in seconds.
He's a little freaked out, you know?
I think he's so essential to this movie because you kind of have to have someone in the audience who isn't maybe caught up with the wonder of what's going on. I mean, the movie-going audience. Because there would be people who watch this movie and are like freaking out about what's going on and looking at this idea that how can, you know, thinking about almost fatalistic in his approach here. But of course, this is Romilly's journey. His journey is to look at all the danger, kind of sit with it, accept it, and then eventually, as you said later on, he becomes this rock because he has faced all the fears that he has as he's navigating this journey, and he makes a very strong decision to stay strong about what he believes, you know, and so I love that about him.
I think Romilly is decided that this is what he has to do and has decided to shut off or deal with whatever all of the emotions, which I think are considerable, that he's having, because he's the guy that's going to be in this tin box alone for 23 years.
23 years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean, that's like crazy.
You know that some of the finest solo yachtsmen in the world don't know how to swim. They don't know. I mean, they go overboard, they're done. We're explorers, right? This is our boat.
Is, I think, a great Captain Kirk kind of moment.
Yeah.
You know? And then, which I really love, is he gives him his headphones and Romilly puts them in, and we hear something that sounds like, I think, storm and rain and earth sounds. And you could totally tell it helps.
Yeah, it calms him down.
Guys, looks like we'll be approaching the wormhole in about 3 hours.
Romilly comes up to Coop and asks if they can stop the spinning.
Why? Because we're close enough to see it now.
Which I love that Romilly he's the scientist. He's excited. This is seeing something very few humans have ever seen.
Yeah.
Spinning stops, and we see it in the distance.
It's a sphere. Well, of course it is. What you thought it would just be a hole.
Now, the thing is, that Cooper, I think, would know many of the things that he doesn't know.
100%.
They would have talked about this.
Yes, of course they would have. But this is for the audience. This is for those.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is for those of us who probably got a C in science. And I include myself in that, by the way. Because science is always very, very difficult subject for me growing up in school.
And to be clear, this is not the science that we took in high school.
Yeah,
this is a whole other kind of science.
This is, some might say, rocket science. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So here we're going to get our explanation of this wormhole, which is that Doyle takes out a piece of paper. He makes.
Sorry, Steve. You said Doyle and it's Romilly. Sorry to keep
Romilly doing it.
Yeah.
No, dude, always do that.
Okay.
I believe I made a speech about how much I'd rather be told I was wrong so I could be right in the future. That was not bullshit.
Fair point.
Because if you hadn't told me that, then I would be editing it. I would have realized I fucked it up, and then I would feel shitty about it.
Oh,
and then I would have to make I would have to make the decision of re-recording it without you, or editing it a different way, or fixing it some other way. Now it's just going to be correct. And then Romilly explains how a wormhole works, and he does it by taking out a piece of paper. He draws 2 dots on it and the line that connects them.
So they say you want to go from here to there, but it's too far, right?
And then he bends that piece of paper, uses his pen to punch a hole between where the 2 dots are.
So a wormhole bends space like this, so you can take a shortcut through a higher dimension.
So is this making sense, John? Like, how you feeling about this? You're cool with this?
This I can understand. This is an easy way without all the $10 words to explain to me how a wormhole works in the 2 dimensions.
So you know where when I started to learn this stuff, and it was particularly because I took like Physics 10 and Astro 10 at Cal, which is sort of, they called it like physics for poets. No,
Yeah.
this is where the theater kids would go to take physics. This is none of the physics students would ever take this class. But what I realize is like this idea of the wormhole is it never occurred to me as a huge Star Trek fan. That's why it's called warp speed, because you are warping space.
Yeah.
Just like the wormhole,
yeah.
you're bending space.
Good
And that's
points.
how you can travel faster than the speed of light, because in the normal universe, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. So that is a two-dimensional version of a wormhole, which is we have entities living on a piece of paper, 2 dimensions, and then we fold the paper into a third dimension, which those entities living on that paper, they can't see, but that allows them to move like this. We live in 3 dimensions. So if you're folding space, you can't fold it into length, width, or height. You can only fold it into the 4th dimension, which is time. And therefore, what looked like a hole on a piece of paper going from 2 dimensions to 3 looks like a sphere when you go from 3 to 4. That is why the wormhole looks like a sphere. By the way, do you know the origin of the term a wormhole?
No, please.
Well, imagine that the universe is an apple, and you have little creatures crawling around the surface of the universe. To get to the other side of the apple, they have to go all the way around the apple to get there. But if a little worm ate a hole through the apple, then the creatures could go directly through. A wormhole comes from a worm eating a hole in an apple.
God damn. I've never connected a wormhole with a worm.
Neither had I.
But who put it there? Who do we have to thank?
I'm not thanking anybody until we get out of here in one piece, Rom.
I love that line. I love that.
They're heading in. I mean, the wormhole design is spectacular.
Oh,
I mean, it's just, this is amazing to look at. And I like that Cooper asked, like, is there any trick to this? And he's like, we don't know. Like, the only people who ever did this never came back. So, how, we can't tell. And the thing that we see as we come closer to the wormholes, we see the spinning spherical reflection of the galaxy.
Yeah.
That is moving around it. And this is, because again, like I read this book, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the science to the best of my ability. And I am sure if there are physicists listening, I'm certain I'm getting some of this wrong, but I'm going to do the best I can.
Give us a break, Dave Rapp. Give us a break. Yeah, in case you're listening.
So this is my understanding of what's happening here. So, we have this huge power of gravity, and light is bent by gravity. And if you think so that as light is traveling by a heavy thing, it will curve. And the way gravity curves things, this is all of Einstein's gravity, theories that have all been proven true, is that gravity is our 3-dimensional space bending. That's it's heavy things bend space around it. And because space is bending around it, when light travels, the light beam will bend. Well, if you think about a spaceship going into orbit around a planet, is that if it's going super fast, it'll get pulled in by the gravity of the planet, but it's going too fast, and so it keeps going. But if the gravity of the planet is strong enough and the thing is coming by, it'll capture that spaceship and pull it into orbit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if the gravity of a wormhole or of a black hole is so strong, then that light that got bent gets pulled essentially into orbit. And so all of the light of the galaxy is now spinning around this wormhole and can't escape it.
That makes sense.
Here's the interesting thing about this. Some of these ideas of spherical reflection, which is what this is called, are theories about gravity that were developed, at least partially, by our good friend Kip Thorne, executive producer of this movie. And so what he did, this is his stuff, he presented all of the equations essentially. But nobody has ever seen this. No human being has ever seen this, because a wormhole can't be created naturally. We can't go out and hang out next to a black hole and check it out. They're too far away. So no one's ever seen this. So we don't know what it looks like. But what they did, the way that computer graphics work, like in old school animation, you draw a little cell and then you draw another one. And the animator is kind of having to figure out if I have something falling, well, how fast does gravity fall? And he will estimate it and he will draw it.
Right.
Way computer animation works is that it's all in the math. Gravity is built into the system. So if you say this thing drops, the computer knows how fast it drops. If you have light shining on a source, the computer understands exactly what all the reflections are. So an animator drawing it would kind of have to guess, well, I have a light source over there, so the reflection would look like this. The computer doesn't guess. And if you're on the computer with this model and you move the light source, all the shadows and reflections would move. So the CG people who are working on this movie goes, well, you have all the equations about how this would work. And he goes, yeah, but there's no way to see it. And they're like, well, this is what we do is take mathematical equations, plug them into a computer and have it spit out the results. And so they started to enter the actual scientific data of light and the wavelengths and whatever all that is into our big, powerful CG computers. This was so difficult for these computers that sometimes it took, with top of the line systems, 100 hours to render one frame of film.
Wow.
But the crazy thing is, first of all, this is one of the great experiences of Kip Thorne's life, because here's these theories he's been working on, and then the effects people said, come on in, we're going to show you what it looks like. And he got to see the real thing. But he says he thinks they learned science from this. He thinks the process of the computer figuring out how to do this and him working with them, they actually took information that he felt that they could push science forward because of making this movie, which I think is really cool.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Damn. Well, that's good. I mean, giving back, it's good to have the exchange. I'm sure as a scientist, he loved it, you know?
Well, and it really goes to me like, I just think it's so cool. I just love that you've invented this technology to entertain us, but it's really cool technology, and we used it for something else too. I think that's so great. So we're flying for the wormhole. The shots, I think, are totally disorienting in terms of the lights we're seeing out of the ship. And again, it's just interesting how they made this movie. Normally, you got all these windows on the Ranger, right? So the way I would do it is I would put green screens on all those windows, and then I could put whatever the hell I want to put in there later on. That's, of course, not how Christopher Nolan did it. This is all projections outside of the set.
Wow.
So the actors who are sitting in these chairs are seeing exactly what we're seeing. Normally, if you do green screen, they're looking at nothing. And the even cooler thing about these projections is that they're so bright that when a bright light goes in the projections, it's bright enough to cause the reflections on the helmets of the actors.
That's amazing.
Which is why they're all perfectly in sync. It also, of course, is way easier for the actors to act because they're actually looking at stuff. Yeah. And they got seasick because the images were so distorted and strange that every single one of them needed a little Dramamine.
It's like doing VR. When you do really good virtual reality and put those glasses on, it completely fucks with your equilibrium and can get you seasick for sure. My problem with this is it's not as believable because from what I understand from Star Trek, there's supposed to be multiple images of them coming out of the clouds. This doesn't seem as believable as I've seen before.
No. That's time travel. See, this is a wormhole. So totally different. That's a slingshot around the sun.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other. We're messing with time in some way. But yes, I know you're right. But I think this is amazing. Like honestly, I went back and rewatched this scene 4 or 5 times and just sat there in utter awe and wonder at what the vision and storyboarding and then execution of this entire sequence was. You know, it's just phenomenal.
Everybody ready to say goodbye to our solar system? To our galaxy. Here we go.
Music builds and we go into the wormhole, and it is really cool. You can hear the strain on the ship, the sounds, and Coop reaches for the controls, and we hear
The controls won't work here. We're passing through the bulk. Space beyond our 3 dimensions. All you can do is record and observe.
Takes his hand off the controls, and then there's something kind of distorted and flickering, sort of hovering around Dr. Brand.
What is that?
And she reaches her hand out to it, and they go, don't. And there's a distortion, and then we're in another galaxy.
What was that?
First handshake.
And of course, later we find out what that was. And I feel like as we come into a new solar system and a new galaxy, and maybe this is just crazy on my part, but I feel like the sun and the light from the sun doesn't look like our sun.
Yeah, I'm sure that's on purpose. Knowing Nolan, making this, kind of subconsciously working on you, seeing that it feels different.
And the first thing we do is we have a team meeting going over sort of our options, and the things that we find out is that Dr. Mann is still transmitting data. that Edmonds was transmitting data, but he went down 3 years ago. And that Miller's planet still looks good because she's the closest one.
With one complication. The planet is much closer to Gargantua than we thought.
Gargantua.
To which they then explained that Gargantua is the name that they give to the black hole. Again, same thing. I am sure Cooper would have known this. He's not just finding this out at this moment. But as you said, this is for the audience to understand this. And that Miller's planet, and at first Cooper thinks this is just like a navigation issue.
Look, I could swing around that neutron star to decelerate.
No, it's not that. It's time. The gravity on that planet will slow our clock compared to Earth's drastically.
Oh, how bad?
Well, every hour we spend on that planet will be 7 years back on Earth.
An hour to 7 years.
Yeah. I don't remember if this is the first time I'd heard about difference in time and relativity and all of that, but this was the first time that really stuck in my head. You know,
Right.
I know I've seen a lot of sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars, all that stuff, but for whatever reason, this was the first time that it really struck me, the time difference in terms of that and how crazy that is to consider. And of course, it becomes a very important plot point as the movie goes along. Movie goes along. Yeah.
I 100% knew about it, but never experienced it, like never felt it, because essentially Star Trek and Star Wars and all the science fiction we grew up with was lying to us about how the universe actually worked. And because their way of dealing with all these things is we're just not going to deal with any of that. Yeah. We're just going to go, we can travel wherever we want and there's no time dilation or anything else. So a couple things about this. This idea of 1 hour out on the planet translates to 7 hours both on the Endurance and on Earth was Christopher Nolan's idea. That's what he wanted in the script. So he goes to, as all writer-directors do, he goes to his science advisor and says, how do we make this work? Because the whole goal of this film is that we're really doing hard science, that the math really works. And Kip Thorne goes, an hour to 7 years? I don't know that we can pull that off. And then what he did was he basically went to the chalkboard and equations and tried to figure out what situation could create that level of time dilation. I'll say this. I am holding on to these ideas with my fingertips that I'm about to try to describe. What I never knew is there are actually two forms of time dilation. So one form of time dilation, which is the one that I knew, is the faster you go, the more time will slow down for you as you approach the speed of light. So objects, so basically, again, here's your science lesson, but Newtonian physics basically explains the world as we experience it. It totally works 100% top to down. You want to see how, we put this much gunpowder in the cannon and this is the trajectory. You can tell through Newtonian physics where that cannon is going to hit. It really describes our world perfectly until things get really big, really fast, or really small. And suddenly Newton doesn't work at all. And of course, all of this stuff comes from Einstein. And the first piece is, and I will explain it the way I first heard this in something when I was in high school. I have such a memory of it. Is like the way we think of and this is for speed dilation, is that the way we think of stuff is that if you and I are both in two cars and we're driving next to each other and we can't see anything else and we look over at each other, we look like we're standing still, right?
Yeah.
Or you've all had the experience where you're like sitting in a train and there's a train next to you and suddenly movement happens and you can't tell if the train next to you is moving backwards, which makes you think you're moving forwards, or if you're actually moving forward. Have you ever had that experience?
The car one I have, not the train one. I don't get on a lot of trains in my life.
Okay. Well,
I've only been on 3 trains in my life. Yeah.
The basic point is that our speed is relative to some other speed. So if you're going 10 miles an hour and I'm going 15 miles an hour, between the two of us, I look like I'm going 5 miles an hour and you're still, essentially, if we can't see the world or anything else. And that totally works, except for light. Because we're on a plane, because anytime you measure the speed of light is always the same, which is weird because we're on a planet that's spinning and it's going in this orbit around a sun that's moving. And so everything is moving. So you would think if I was going towards the light the light would appear to be
Yeah.
coming faster to me. If I was going away, it would go slower. If I'm on something that's moving fast, the light should slow down, but it doesn't. And Einstein is looking at this and goes, wait, there's something weird about the universe. And then in one of his many, I think it's 1905 is the year of just sheer brilliance, where this patent clerk completely reshapes the way we see the universe, is he goes, well, if light doesn't change speed, then there must be different rules for light. And because of that, and I swear, I know I mentioned I had this, Physics 10 and Astro 10, and the TA of the class did the entire mathematical proof of how this worked and why. Because what happens is the faster you go, you get heavier, time slows down, all this weird shit happens, which makes no sense. And when he put this whole proof on the blackboard, I went, I get it. It's perfect. It's obvious. It's perfectly clear. And I kept that perfectly clear in my head, I think, for about 4 days. And then after that, it's no longer clear. And this speed dilation, this time dilation because of speed, is something that we actually are experiencing or using every single day. Because when they put satellites up in space that are orbiting the planet, they're moving much faster than we are. A geosynchronous satellite, you just think of, like in a record player, the track on the inside, for the old people on a record player, the track on the inside is not moving as fast as the way on the outside. It has to move faster to maintain the same position. Well, we have GPS satellites, and the GPS, they show us they show us our location through triangulation, right? So if a couple of satellites can see where you are, the message goes up to them, comes back down, and it tells you this is where you are. The problem is those satellites are moving so fast that there actually is time dilation, just like Einstein predicted. And so if they didn't build the time dilation into the equation to say time is moving much slower for those satellites than it's moving for us, our GPS systems wouldn't work. So that's the first kind of time dilation.
Right.
The second kind of time dilation, which is the one that we're dealing with here, is gravitational time dilation, which comes from Einstein's theory of gravity, which is 1915. I mean, the craziness of how Einstein completely rearranged how we saw the universe is amazing. And what basically it is what we've been talking about, like with that wormhole and the space warp where he folds the paper, is that basically all matter warps space. And the heavier the matter, the more it warps space. There's a great explanation of it where they have a flexible sort of rubber material, and they put something heavy in the middle of it. It's like round shape. And so it sinks down, creating a cone. And then this guy kind of throws marbles around it that end up orbiting that cone. And that is what's actually happening to us in 3 dimensions, is everywhere there's something heavy, it's warping space. And when you warp space, there is also a time dilation. Because, and this is beyond me, I can't even come up with a good metaphor for it. But the idea is the closer you are to a really, really, really heavy thing, like a black hole, then time is going to slow down for you. So that's the time dilation we're talking about here. Because Miller's planet, it's not about the speed, which is what I thought it was. Because Miller's planet is really close to this black hole, when you go down there, time is slowing down for you, and the Earth, which is not experiencing that time dilation, it's running at its speed. So the idea is that on Miller's planet, because it's so close to the black hole, time is really going to slow down. And Christopher Nolan wanted this ratio of an hour to 7 years. And so what Kip Thorne did was he came up with the exact size and density of a black hole, the exact distance of Miller's planet, the exact speed of the orbital rotation in order to make this ratio happen. And what he says, it's right on the edge of reality. It's that he was able to make it work scientifically, that this was possible, but it's only under extreme circumstances. What's so crazy about all of that is most filmmakers would never do any of it. They would just go, I want 1 hour to be 7 years. And so that's what I'm going to do.
I'll give you an example of that. They don't touch on any of that in Avengers Doomsday when they go, mess around with the stone. I mean, they all want to denigrate Back to the Future and all that kind of stuff, but like they don't factor in like that you're going into multiple different areas of space to return the Infinity Stones, and there's no conversation about how long that's going to take. Now, don't get me wrong. When we see Steve again, he's like the 2001 old dude there at the end of the movie, but we don't know that that's necessarily the reason why he's old and all that kind of stuff, especially because the film ends with him having that dance with Peggy. So we don't know how all of this, they don't even address that stuff in Avengers because they don't need to, right? Well, but here in a film like this, I think Nolan wanted to beyond. I mean, it's a way of like, I don't want to say in a negative way, ego, but it's an artistic ego in that I wanted to have an elevated approach, and for scientists to look at this, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who never shuts up about this stuff, to look at it and actually give it some credibility. So you understand the approach, because no one's going to the Avengers going like, they that doesn't feel realistic to me. No, it's like, do you get the stones or not, right? And this is a completely different movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think Steve is old just because he theoretically went back in time and lived another 50 years. Like, I don't think Steve,
somehow ended up there.
But
it's very nebulous. It's very nebulous.
Right.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. And by the way, I like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Obviously, I'm a science guy. I like science. But his poo-pooing of movies sometimes really bugs me. It's like, that's not why we're here for Avengers Endgame.
I agree with you. But that's the nerd in him. When he went after Gravity, which I love to pieces, I was like, come on, man. Let us enjoy the film, dude.
Yeah, I will tell a story. My guess is I've told this story on the podcast before, but I'll tell it again because it's perfectly fits this, which is I worked on the DVD for Finding Nemo. And when Pixar, as they do, they went out to ichthyologists, to fish scientists, and brought them over to Pixar and went over fish anatomy and fish diet and fish habits and mating habits and all this stuff. And all the illustrators and all the writers are writing things down. And they go, thank you so much. This has been great. And they go back and they do their first sort of roughs of the animation. And when they finally have some roughs of the animation, they call back the ichthyologists and all the scientists. And they bring them back because they're so excited to show them the thing. And they show them the thing. And at some moment, Marlin or Nemo or someone rotates their fin to like reach for something. And the scientists go, excuse me, the joint of the fin wouldn't be able to rotate forward and to grab that. And the animators look at the scientists and they say, fish don't talk.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Exactly. The point is the movie. Like, that's why I love that Nolan goes to all, and I think Nolan is, I also think Nolan is kind of doing what he does with everyone else, which is the science is a limitation on his creativity that he likes,
Right. It's a great point, which we brought up earlier. Yeah, for sure.
But so the point is that going down to Miller's planet is going to cost them.
Well, we can't just drop down there without Cooper.
We have a mission.
Yeah, no, we have a mission, and our mission, plan A, is to find a planet that can habitate the people that are living on the Earth right now.
I'm saying that, like, this is gonna, more and more people are gonna die on Earth every year that we, every minute we spend, there are gonna be more people dying, and they think he's being selfish.
You can't just think about your family. Now you have to think bigger than that. All right?
I am thinking about my family and millions of other families. Okay, Plan A does not work if the people on Earth are dead by the time we pull it off.
No, it doesn't. That's why there's a plan B.
I do think Doyle is one of the most underdeveloped characters in the movie, right? He just serves to be the kind of poo-pooer in certain situations. And it's kind of a shame for Wes Bentley because he's a damn good actor. And they should, some of you who've watched Yellowstone could attest, I think they should have given him much more to do here. But then again, it'd be a 4-hour movie, to be honest with you. So it's an interesting thing to see him saying what he's talking about. He seems like the more scientists of all of them in terms of like the aloofness about humanity. And you kind of need to have that energy. But I do think there's just such underdevelopment here that you wish he had a bit more oomph.
He ends up being used frequently as the exposition device.
Yes, which is frustrating.
Well, and what's interesting is, again, it's something we've been talking about since the beginning of the Cine-Files. With Romilly, you have the Dramamine moment and the moment with the thin skin of the thing, and we're like, I'm in with this guy.
Yes.
Probably under a minute of total screen time for us to get his character. And Doyle has no moment like that,
No, not really, Yeah. Not even these exchanges do enough to give you, because these are more about debate exchanges, not human moments, vulnerable moments,
Then Cooper asks, well, how far away does the ship have to be outside of Miller's orbit in order to not get messed up by this time dilation? And Romilly points it out, and Cooper gets up, goes to the monitor, grabs the monitor that's against the wall, and rotates it, flips it over so that it becomes a dry erase board. Now, is this a great moment of design or special effects? No. But it's great. It's a great tiny little detail of this ship.
It's a captain moment. He looks like a badass flipping that fucking thing over and going right into the equations. It's a captain moment, And I have to think McConaughey and Nolan had conversations like this, because he has this kind of swagger to him, Cooper does. Because no one else seems to be the captain on this ship. Like, it isn't like it's 4 captains and anyone can take control of the ship. He's very clearly the captain of the ship, even with these 3 incredibly intelligent scientists.
I think it's a strange dynamic because he's not full Captain Kirk. This is what we're going to do.
No.
Is much more of a community that has to agree on things together.
Right.
But to me, it's like he's the man of action. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he's the person who's going to. One thing about this dry erase board is, again, this goes into the design of this ship. Is essentially what they did was they're like, this is essentially a space RV, and because it's like an RV, every single piece of space has to be used. Chairs fold up and pop down. Screens turn into dry erase boards, and this is all over the ship. A bunch of it never actually shows up in the movie, is all the little tiny details of how everything is multi-use, compact, can be gotten out of the way or brought back up. It's really a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And basically, he draws on the dry erase board and lays out a plan where they do a wide orbit around both Gargantua and Miller's Planet so that the Endurance is outside the time dilation and only the Ranger is going to go down to the planet.
This is known as the slingshot maneuver, which we discovered in 1998 in Armageddon. So, it's good to see that he's using it. It's canon in 2067. So I love that.
To be clear, the slingshot maneuver was first shown in the episode Tomorrow is Yesterday in season 1 of Star Trek TOS when they go back in time.
What's that science voice you were using? You need to be saying it in that science.
Excuse me.
To be clear.
And so they said, yeah, okay, we're going to do this. We like the plan. We're going to try to be super efficient. And then Romilly says,
if we're talking about a couple of years, I could use the time to research gravity. Observations from the wormhole, that's gold to Professor Brand.
And to me, that's a little bit of a plot device. Like, this is not a well-known actor, so you're going to send your 3 well-known actors into the ship and you leave your less well-known actor back on the ship. But the logic makes sense, but it's also convenient for the film.
I can't call it a plot device because coming back to finding him 23 years later is among the most crushing and moving things.
Oh, I
movie.
agree. Yeah. I agree. But, but it also serves the film to go this direction. Also, because Doyle has to die,
Yeah. Those are the best plot devices, the ones that serve the film in multiple places.
Yeah.
So we're suited up. We're down in the Ranger. We have now Case instead of Tars as our robot.
You ready, Case?
Yep.
You don't say much, do you?
Tars talks plenty for both of us.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and Case's voice, who we're now going to hear a little bit more, is voiced by Josh Stewart. And for those of you who are currently watching Criminal Minds Evolution, he is in there as the husband of one of the main cast members there. And I kind of like him as an actor. He's a really subtle actor, and he kind of talks like this sometimes when he's actually doing some of his stuff. So he's an intense actor. So it was an interesting choice as a dichotomy from Bill Irwin, because this is definitely not a guy who studied at the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. This is a completely different guy who was born in West Virginia, and so just a different energy. And I like that he's said one of the first lines he says is, Tars speaks enough for both of us. I dig that as a different personality.
Yep.
So yeah.
We detach the Ranger, and now we get our first a real glimpse of Gargantua, which is gorgeous. I mean, with this sort of neutron star collapsed inside, and it just is absolutely beautiful.
The literal heart of darkness.
We could just see the collapsed star inside. The singularity. Yeah, we'd solve gravity.
We can't get anything from it.
Nothing escapes that horizon. Not even light.
And then we're coming up on Miller's Planet, and Romilly says,
"Goodbye, Ranger,"
and fades out. That fade out is so prophetic, to me.
Yeah, because he's about to fade into black for 23 years. Yeah, great point, Steve. Yeah.
And then we're flying down to Miller's Planet, and Cooper, it sounds like he is not using the brakes, is basically what happened. He's going in full speed, lots of bouncing, lots of warning beeps.
That's what I can see in Case. The only time I ever went down was when the machine was easing at the wrong time. A little caution would go and get you killed, just like reckless driving.
So he clearly is remembering his crash and the interference of the the thing to me, and this is where I don't think the science actually works, is Coop is depending upon his instincts as a pilot and his feel of the Ranger. But they're going into a planet with 130% the gravity of Earth. Therefore, none of the feel would be the same of what he's used to.
Yeah. But this is the swagger of Cooper, and what Nolan wants us to feel from him is this guy. He goes by his guts.
It's not a criticism. Hey, look, what's the line from Armageddon? It's like he's never missed a what is it?
Yeah, he's never missed a depth he's aimed for. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what all of Armageddon is. I got a feeling for how to do this.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's
totally.
That's all of Kirk. It's all Star Trek is.
100%.
You don't see Kirk doing equations on a chalkboard. Oh man, it's just figuring it out as he goes along.
But that's why he has Spock.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we come in super fast. You can see Doyle and Brand are not enjoying this fly-in. He does some crazy maneuvers. They come in through the clouds. We see this ocean. He spirals down in. They come in. It looks like a lot of G's. Right over the water, he yells, "Fire!" And they come to a very jarring stop.
Very graceful.
No, but very efficient.
And I love the look from Wes Bentley. It's so like, I hate you at that moment.
Let's go. Go, 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 go. 7 years per hour here. Let's make it count.
And they step out into what I think is among the most unusual, amazing, astounding, different alien planet in all of cinema.
Yeah.
I mean, it just isn't like anything.
Yeah, it's just it gets water, but you're in the middle of the ocean in essence, but it's only a foot or two deep. So it's kind of a mind fuck in a lot of ways.
It totally is.
Yeah.
And as I said before, this is also shot in Iceland. They knew they were going to shoot in Iceland because of the glaciers that they had shot on for Batman Begins. But they're also looking around, and they found this one area of water that had all of these things in it, which is one, it is very shallow. And it is consistently shallow. It's not like a little shallow here and then deep and then shallow. It's like there's a fair amount of space that's pretty shallow. The bottom is extremely solid because they're going to bring in cranes and trucks and equipment and all sorts of heavy stuff to shoot on it. So you need ground that is flat and that is solid enough to hold all that weight. Yeah. This is a brutal shoot, dude. I mean, like,
I imagine, especially in Iceland, for God's sakes. Yeah,
all the cast and crew all had to wear waders everywhere. Oof. And I don't know if you knew this, but movie crews use a lot of electricity, and electricity and water, they don't get along that well. And so like they have, they've got generators, they got all the stuff, and everything has to be kept safe. And of course, everything is getting wet. It's brutal on the equipment. This is tough. And they step out onto this water world.
In essence,
including Case. And now we see Case kind of walking through the water world. And again, a lot of this is Bill Irwin walking through this water on the set. Some of it is for more complicated movements. It is mechanically assisted, or it's just CG.
Right.
We hear that it's 200 meters away. There's a high angle of them walking in the water. And again, I just think this looks like nothing else. This looks like nothing else ever in cinema. The cinematographer is Hoyt van Hoytema, who also shot Oppenheimer. Wally Pfizer, who had done a ton of stuff with Nolan, was off making his directorial debut on Transcendence. So he wasn't there. What's even crazier to me, because Nolan loves IMAX, is they're shooting not only are they shooting a lot of IMAX footage in this sequence, but Hoytema is hand holding an IMAX camera. So he's in waders, hand holding an IMAX camera. Those things weigh like 100 pounds. And he's running around through the water, chasing off these actors to get these shots. That's a strong dude.
And it's thousands of dollars of equipment in that one.
Camera. I am going to make up a number that is entirely bullshit, but I would not be surprised if an IMAX camera didn't cost $50,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're very expensive. And of course, the one good thing is he's not actually having to deal with the gravity on Miller's planet, because we hear
gravity's punishing.
Been floating through space too long?
130% Earth gravity.
And Case finds the beacon from Miller.
Yeah.
Where's the rest?
Towards the mountains.
And they're walking towards the mountains, and Coop is watching them through the window, and we get the...
Those aren't mountains. They're waves.
Terrifying.
Oh, that moment, I remember in the theater going, oh my God, because I've always been afraid of, this is something that I've never told you. I watch YouTube videos of large waves. Like I watch people like try to navigate them and all of that. There's that HBO series, 100-Foot Wave, that's out now for 2 or 3 seasons. To me, there's a sense of awe and utter fear, but I can't help but watch this stuff because it just unsettles me,
I mean, awe and utter fear are the correct combo. That is exactly right. It's funny. Now I'm just thinking about the Outlaws playlist because now I know, okay, there's the waves and wave videos. There's watching animals kill each other. Like I know you've done that. There was another one you told me. There's another one you told me recently. I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, this is an interesting playlist we're going to get here.
A lot of variety, but all of it are a mixture of awe and fear, I would imagine. Yeah.
And they all have an oh shit. And then we hear, and I bet this was added as a voiceover in post.
That one's moving away from us.
Because otherwise we'd think it was coming right towards us.
Brand Doyle, back to the Ranger now.
We're not leaving without her data.
Back here now. We do not have time. The second wave is coming. We're in the middle of the swell.
Brand finds the other piece of equipment, and she's struggling to pick it up as Cooper is yelling at her to come back, and she falls, and this thing falls on top of her. And of course, with the extra weighted gravity, she can't move it.
Right.
The other thing about this moment is this moment when she fell in the water is the moment that Anne Hathaway discovered that her spacesuit had a hole in it.
Oh, shit.
And water starts, and this is cold water. I don't think it's ice cold,
it's Iceland.
but it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the name ice is part of the name. She didn't tell anybody. She just toughed it out.
Oh, Anne.
Go, Cooper, go. I can't make it. Go.
Case, go get her.
Case drops what he's carrying and now splits into like 4 beams to become a wheel and just goes shooting down to get Brand. And this was done practically on the set. It's some of it. I mean, some of it I'm sure is CG, but what they did, which is awesome, is they have like a little ATV and hooked up to the axle of the ATV is a pole that comes out that attaches to Case. So who's in that wheel formation. So if the ATV drives around, that wheel just spins like Case is running through the water.
It's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
And this is and Doyle is the one that sends Case to go get her. And Doyle is the one who will pay the price for it. It's a weird decision to have him just kind of stand still in the water while all this is going on instead of heading back to the ship. It's an interesting. I've always thought of this moment of like, is there feelings for her? Has he always like kind of had feelings for her? Is that why he wanted to make sure she was safe? Or is there the fact that they've worked together? Like, it's just quizzical why Doyle waits and then lets her go in first with Case. Now, I get that's very gentlemanly. I get that. But a motherfucking 100-foot wave is coming. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I just found it odd that he would wait, which is, of course, what leads to his death here in just a few seconds.
I think he just freezes up, honestly. I really think he just, I mean, like, one of the things that always bugs me when people, 2020 hindsight stuff, whether it's like the last play of the Super Bowl or, some others, is that people who have not been in tense, crazy situations do not understand how fast time goes. Like,
that's true. You're right.
It's matters of seconds that we're talking about for Doyle to die here. And it's hard for us to conceive of, I only have seconds,
Yeah.
But Case picks up Brand, starts running. She jumps in Case's arms, as you said. Doyle lets her go first. Doyle is right at the hatch when just as they're closing it and that big wave comes and takes him away.
Yeah.
And by the way, that is Wes Bentley attached to a wire with a huge, water surge coming in and them yanking him away. That's really the actor doing that.
Wow.
And inside, it's just chaos. Cooper is yelling. The engines are flooded. The Rangers bouncing in these waves. They're thrown around inside. And then there's this wide shot, and we see just this tiny, tiny ship on this unbelievable wave.
He does this a few times through the movie. every once in a while, he wants you to check in to understand how insane this mission is and how tiny and small the chances are. And that is reflected by them. Like when we see the ship going across the planet, the rings of Saturn, whatever it is, and it's so fucking small. And then this shot of the ship on top of this massive wave, it's all just to convey how actually insane this decision is and how little chance it has to work and how small we are in the universe and the galaxy as well.
Yep.
You know?
They crest over the wave and basically start surfing down the other side. Cooper screaming until finally they hit the bottom again and the wave has just gone past them.
Hey, what's the problem?
Too waterlogged. Let it drain.
God damn it!
And now emotions are super high.
I told you to leave me.
And I told you!
Why
Get
did
your
you leave
ass
me?
back here! The difference is one of us was thinking about the mission,
Who were you
Brad!
thinking about getting home?
Which I don't think so. I mean, I think, you know, I don't think Cooper is like as compromised as sometimes they seem to think that he is.
Well, I also think, as you said, these are emotions, man. Like, I remember years ago when me and our friend Amber and Courtney, and I can't remember who else was with us, like, we were walking out after Brian Leonard's birthday party over there by the Dodger Stadium, and we walked by a shooting in a bar.
Oh, I remember
And
this.
and I ran, and like as soon as they started shooting, I grabbed Courtney and Amber and we like threw them behind a car and got on top of them because I was like, "What? This ain't gonna fucking
Goddamn
happen here."
heroic, by the way.
No, don't. I don't. That's just
It is
instinctual. Well, it's just instinctual.
I didn't say, I didn't say consciously. I didn't say consciously heroic. I said goddamn heroic.
I feel just like, always, because this is military training kicks in. That's what you're supposed to do, and so I put them, and then, we kept checking, and I think Courtney flipped out and just ran all the way across the 5-lane road. And you know how big that road is there, which is pretty massive for those who you don't know. And so she just took off. Right. And so it was just me and Amber, and I can't remember who else was with us there. Maybe it might have been Sarah. And then the shooting eventually stopped, and the guy who had been shooting ran past us. So it was, pretty hairy stuff. And I kept my cool. But then we got in the car, and as we're driving somewhere, someone said something or someone made some kind of crack or comment, and I just lost it. Right, I just got upset at the 3 women I just was worried about and protecting. I got upset because I think someone made a joke about it, and it just kind of triggered me because I was so tense from holding it together. And we stopped the car, and I had to get out and just kind of yell my feelings yell, not at them, but yell out into the world to calm myself down and get back in the car. And we were all cool after, because they were all freaking out as well. And so that's the way it is in those moments. Like, you get that fucking adrenaline and you're just thinking of surviving. But once you survive, the adrenaline kicks in. And that's what you're seeing here. I think the back and forth and yelling and the irrational accusations that they're making at each other, So,
I think you're 100% right. Two things. One is I don't know what Amber and Courtney were doing, but my guess is they probably froze, and you didn't.
100%. Yes.
Well, and that's what I was saying about Doyle is like these moments happen. They're happening really fast and most people don't react. I had the exact same experience. I won't go into details, but I once broke up a fight at a hockey game, which I guess was maybe a stupid thing to do. But I was I was perfectly calm. I felt totally in control of the situation while it was going on. Security came up, relieved me of the guy I was holding against a wall. I said, okay, here you go, take him. And then we're walking back to the car. And I turned to Karen, and suddenly I got the shakes. And I turned to Karen, and I was like, "You're going to need to drive. I can't drive." Like, I was because the adrenaline dumps happens, and then you're in the aftermath of the adrenaline dump. And I was like, but I was totally calm when the fight was going on. I was that. It was after that was when I lost it.
I was trying to do the right thing.
You tell that to Doyle. Case homicide.
45 to an hour.
Yeah. This stuff of life, huh? What's this gonna cost us, Brand?
A lot. Decades.
It's so hard to get your head around, man. It's just like 45 minutes is decades in all these other people's lives. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I love how Anne acts this moment too. And the thing is, there's logic here. What Brand did was that data could be important. They needed that data. They couldn't have lost it, and she tried to get it, and so the logic was there. But of course, in the moment, he's yelling at her like, "You tell that to Doyle." But the logic was sound. You need the data. Humanity could depend on this data. So but you get it. It's a stressful, tense, very situation.
Well, and she could have just saved the world, had possibly, the data been good. I mean, this is the thing. This is what always bugs me is like, we're all looking at the past as if we could have made perfect predictions of the future.
Yeah.
We can't. Yeah. We make the best decisions we can make at the time that we make them. That's it. That's all we can do.
100%. 100%.
What happened to Miller?
Judging by the wreckage, she was broken up by a wave soon after impact.
How's the wreckage stay together after all these years, huh?
Because of the time slippage. On this planet's time, she just landed hours ago. She probably just died minutes ago.
Oh. The thing about Newtonian physics is it works with the way we sense the world. That we evolved to deal with Newtonian physics. This shit, and if you get into quantum physics, it's even weirder. Our basic sensibilities, the way our brains are constructed, we are not constructed to deal with this idea that time can change. That's just not, we'll never intuitively get it.
So true.
The data Doyle received was just the initial status, echoing endlessly.
Which means it was worthless.
Yep. Utterly worthless.
Oh, you're not prepared for this. You have the survival skills of a Boy Scout troop.
Well, we got this far in our brains, farther than any human in history.
Well, not far enough. And now we're stuck here till there won't be anyone left on Earth to save.
It's brutal. It's just a brutal situation.
But the scene needs to happen, right? Because there's been these divisions between him and them, and maybe just quietly. And I don't think the film stresses it, but there's a quiet judgment. We're the intelligent people. You're the pilot. You're the blue collar guy. We're the white collar people. It has that kind of energy, and him vice versa. You don't throw egghead out there unless you've been thinking about it with these guys, right? And so and maybe he's always had kind of this issue with scientists and whatever. So you see this fissure because earlier, right? It was Coop who was it was Brand who had a little bit of the edge, going, we don't need to share everything. We don't need to be brutally honest. There's all these ball busting going on. Now there's no more of that shit. Now they're equal here in this situation. They fucked up in the whole situation together, and so now they have to kind of like get past this to find a way to communicate together and be on equal playing field again.
And now Cooper essentially goes, "Isn't there some way that we could be Marty McFly and go back in time? Some way to do
Ant-Man
it."
moment.
And she just kind of shakes her head at him.
Don't shake your head at me.
Time is relative, okay? It can stretch and it can squeeze, but it can't run backwards. It just can't, right? The only thing that can move across dimensions like time is gravity.
And then he brings up whatever these creatures that sent them this information. Could they be talking to us from the future? And she says, maybe.
Are beings of 5 dimensions. Right? To them, time might be another physical dimension. To them, the past might be a canyon that they can climb into, and the future, a mountain they can climb up, but to us, it's not, okay? So, Cooper, I screwed up. I'm sorry. But you knew about relativity.
So again, it's such a weird concept, and I cannot get my head around, but I keep thinking about like the idea, like, okay, if you're a 2-dimensional creature, then you can't see the 3rd dimension. Then to you, the 3rd dimension is time, because you are moving through it, but are not aware of it. And that therefore, for us, the 4th dimension is time. And I can say that sentence, and it might have proper grammar, but I do not actually understand it.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
My daughter was 10 years old. Couldn't teach her Einstein's theories before I left.
Couldn't you have told her you were going to save the world?
No. When you become a parent, one thing becomes really clear. And that's that you want to make sure your children feel safe. And it rolls out down a 10-year-old. The world's ending.
We already talked about this, but I disagree.
Yeah, I disagree too.
And now the next wave is coming and the engines are not ready. So essentially, they're gonna pop the clutch. I think here.
Yeah.
Brand, co-pilot, you're up. Case, blow the cabin oxygen through the main thrusters. We're gonna spark it.
Roger that.
And they blast some air through those engines. Flames come out of the thruster. Then a super crazy flight up that wave into the sky. And they just get out just in time. And then the last tragic shot of Doyle's body just floating all alone on this planet.
Yeah, it's so sad.
It's really sad. And I think this sequence has been so thrilling and so involving and so intense that I haven't been thinking about Romilly.
Right.
I just kind of forgot about him. And they get back to the Endurance. The hatch opens, and there's Rom standing there.
Hello, Rom.
I've waited years. How many years? By now it must be.
It's 23 years, 4 months, 8 days.
He looks wrecked. He looks emotionally wrecked. He looks like he's been having those kind of scratching my hand type of things. He's wearing a fucking bathrobe, like he hasn't left his. He's almost, what do you call those? The agoraphobic. He maybe hasn't left a certain area. Like he's got all these tendencies. Plus, I love how they age his beard just slightly, a little bit of gray in there.
First of all, I think if you're all alone in a spaceship orbiting a black hole, agoraphobic is perfectly reasonable. You should really be afraid of going outside. The second thing is, I think this is I can't think of a better example of how the great films are accomplishing a lot of their greatness inside the viewer's brain.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't have any of those 23 years. We don't see any of those 23 years.
Nope.
We don't know anything about them. We just are left to imagine them.
Right. Which is why actors are important. Because and costume designers are important because the design and the makeup, right? The design, the look, and then the performance. And in those exchanges, you're like, dude, he's been going through it for these 23 years. You can tell, and you kind of, as you said, you do all of that in your head, which is great.
My guess is he went through all the stuff.
Oh,
my guess is he was suicidal at one point. He was crazy at one point. He destroyed things at one point. He was self-destructive at one point. He was, fuck everything, fuck the world. He did the whole range of human experience of a person alone, and then decided to keep going.
Yes, but stayed alive. Yes.
Anne Hathaway's reaction here is great.
But I was prepared. I knew the theory. Reality's different.
And Miller.
There's nothing here for us.
And I love the way she touches Romilly's face.
Why didn't you sleep?
Oh, I had a couple of stretches. I stopped believing you were coming back. Something seemed wrong about dreaming my life away.
I agree with you what you said. Like, there's a tenderness in her touching his face. And I wonder if that was instinctual from Anne. Because we had nothing ahead of time to give us an idea that this is their kind of relationship. Not that they have any kind of romantic, but this care, right? And so I wonder if there was something, because Romilly is clearly older than her. And so was Romilly, kind of, when she got in there, was Romilly one of the people that kind of guided her and helped her in those moments and whatever. And so there's just so much in that tenderness of the touch, and for him, I'm sure even more so, having seen a human face. And we're going to find out when we get to Dr. Mann what it's like to see a human face after such a long time. So it's such a beautiful exchange to go along with the loss of Doyle on the planet,
Well, and I think about this choice you face of you're going insane, you're miserable, you're lonely, and you go, okay, well, I could just go sleep for 3 years.
Right.
Right. And and doing it okay, I slept a year. Oh, they're still not back. Well, I guess I could sleep a little longer. Oh, they're still not back. And then sort of to me, it becomes like, well, what is it to be human? Am I alive if I'm just sleeping my life away? For people that maybe are never coming back, and I think he made the, as we said, he made the choice to keep going.
I learned what I could from the black hole, but I couldn't send anything your father. We've been receiving, but nothing gets out.
Is he alive?
Oh, yeah.
She cries. And Coop, I think, I totally understand it. It's not a criticism. It's totally motivatable. He just blew past Romilly because he only has one thing on his mind.
Right.
Because, well, I think he would normally be compassionate to this guy who spent 23 years alone.
Yeah.
He's thinking about his kids. And we see.
Yeah, which is kind of counter, because he pushed back on what Brand said to him. Oh, she was like, you're thinking about your family. Blah, blah. So he is, but he's also trying to find that middle ground between the concern for his family and concern for the mission.
Well, and I think he was, when the chips are down and he had to make spot decisions to save them, he was thinking about the mission and his kids. He was doing all of it. But now that it's not a tense situation where life and death are at stake, all he's thinking about is his kids.
Yeah, exactly.
He sits down. We see that he's looking at a monitor.
We've got years of messages stored.
Cooper.
Messages span 23 years.
I can't imagine what this must be like.
Yeah.
And at first, we just stay on Cooper. We just are watching his face reacting to what he's seeing. And we hear Tom's voice.
Hey, Dad. Checking in. Saying hi. Finished second in school. This currently still giving me C, so pulled me down, but second's not bad.
Cooper starts laughing at first, and then you see that laughter turn into crying. I think Matthew McConaughey is amazing in this sequence.
Oh yeah, this is right in the McConaissance, man. When everyone is reappreciating his talent and what he can bring, and also he rededicated himself to being a better actor. And I also think the flashing light here is super interesting, right? It kind of keeps you. It kind of wakes you up a little bit as you're watching this, and because the flash is so bright. It's an interesting decision by Nolan to not just have him sit in this consistent light and reacting to this stuff. It keeps the element and believability of what they're dealing with there at the same time as we watch him emotionally go through watching his son age through the messages.
And I think there's an element in Tom's performance where you can hear, or in Timothée Chalamet's performance, where you can hear, deep down, I know I'm talking to nobody.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't know if I'm talking to anybody.
Right.
And then we cut to an older Tom who is now Casey Affleck, who I don't think we've seen since Good Will Hunting.
Oh, probably, yeah.
And despite anything that people might say about Casey Affleck, he's a good actor.
Damn good actor. Manchester by the Sea is an incredible film that I hope we do one day on the show.
I have never seen it.
Oh my God. Oh
yeah.
Hey, Dad. Look at this. Your grandpa. His name's Jesse. I kind of wanted to call him Coop, but Lois says maybe next time.
So in one line, we've done a huge amount of stuff. One is obviously it's much later. He obviously married Lois.
Yes.
He's had a child. And I want to focus on this line. I kind of wanted to call him Coop, but Lois says maybe next time.
Yeah.
The reason I think this is an interesting line is there are traditions in some religions and in some communities that it is bad luck to name someone after a person who is still alive. I think Lois saying, Tom saying, I wanted to name after you is Tom saying, I already know you're dead. And Lois saying, maybe next time is saying, it's not yet time to let go of your father. Like that's what I think is going on there.
Interesting. See, I saw it differently. I saw it that she doesn't want him to say Coop all the time because it'll remind him of his father every time he calls for his son.
Totally.
Maybe she wanted a bit of distance because she's seen how much this is weighing on him, that his father's not around. Just because Tom isn't overt like Murph and falling apart all the time, it doesn't mean that Tom doesn't love his dad in his own kind of man way. And so, I think there is a lot of emotion there, especially when we get to after Jesse passes, And so I think maybe that might have been an angle as well. But I hear you on what you said. That's actually I never thought about. That's really interesting.
So I think Tom is such a fascinating character because he's the most of what I will call an iceberg of any character here, which is we only see a tiny bit of him, but that doesn't mean there isn't a ton going on underneath. And I think Tom and his relationship to his father who left and his relationship to the farm where he stays, there is deep, powerful stuff at work there that we never really explore in the film, but that we see evidence of it, you know?
Yeah.
And he says goodbye, and now it's an even older Tom. He's got the beard.
Sorry, it's been a while. Just what with Jesse and all.
What is what with Jesse and all?
Right. That's our first hint that something happened with Jesse. And then later he says, we buried Grandpa over where we buried Jesse. Yeah.
And I, by the way, think Jesse died of the same cough thing that we're going to see later on in the film.
With Lois and the other child, with Coop.
We buried him out in the back 40 next to Mom and Jesse, which is where we would have buried you if you'd ever come back.
That's a hard line on so many levels.
It's a resentment. It's the first time he's expressing resentment that his father's not there,
Yeah.
Because I think that happens as we get older, as men. We need our fathers more than we did. It's like when we get older, like through a young age, we need our dads. Then we don't need our fucking dads. We say that in our minds, like teenage years, 20s, 30s, establishing ourselves. But then when we get to that 40s mark, I think something happens, at least it did for me, where you start to cherish that your father was there. Well, in my late 30s, that your father was there, and you want to establish a relationship, and you understand more of where he was coming from when he was raising you, and some of the things he said. And so I think, and having lost his son, I think that triggers a lot in Tom about loss. Like maybe he'd never really kind of confronted his father could be gone or could have died, but the loss of Jesse kind of brings all of that home. And again, I'm just extrapolating it from the things, the way he looks and all how messed up he looks, but I imagine that's what is an element of that.
I mean, my feeling has always been just there is tremendous deep-seated resentment towards the father that left.
Mm-hmm.
And that on some level that he's supposed to treat as some kind of fucking hero. And I have to leave these messages for this guy who I'm never going to see again. I'm never going to hear anything again. While I'm sitting here struggling on the farm he abandoned, trying to keep the family alive,
And there's two leavings, Steve, because he left to go, and now he's been gone for 23 years with no messages, right? So in essence, he left all over again. And there, as you said, leaving messages for someone who they may think is dead, and that may not be there at all, which is what comes up here.
Murph was there at the funeral, and we don't see her that much, but she came for that.
And McConaughey's sobbing and trying to say no, and there's no way for him to talk to his son. There's no way for him to get a message back from him. There's no way for him to tell him he's still alive. There's no way for him to tell him to please stop communicating. I need to hear from you. He's just completely helpless and isolated.
All these messages are just drifting out there in the darkness. Lois says that I have to let you go, and so I guess I'm letting you go. I don't know, wherever you are, Dad. I hope that you're at peace, and bye.
And he turns off the monitor. Coop thinks that's the last message. And then another face appears.
Hey, Dad.
And there is our grown-up Murphy.
Jessica Chastain. What an incredible actress, man. And so fascinating. I mean, how many space movies? Because she also did Martian, right? And so there's... I think she's just one of these actresses that I wish worked more or was in demand more for certain roles. Because I feel like she's pops up occasionally, but they aren't films that necessarily capture the pop culture zeitgeist. And she's so fucking good as an actress. It's a bit of a shame, to be honest with you.
She's great, yeah. I think she's great at this. And what's funny is all of our three Murphys, I totally feel, I buy that these are the same people. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that the casting is great. The performances are great. And Coop's reaction to seeing his grown-up daughter is, again, fantastic. And I'll just, I said it before, but like McConaughey, what he does here, because all he's doing is sitting in front of a camera reacting. you know? And maybe Nolan did shoot this other footage first, so he actually could be reacting to the real performances. You know, I wouldn't put him past it. No, that's certainly a thing that I think Nolan might have done, but it might have been a script supervisor reading these lines.
Yeah, true.
And then what Murph does catches me so, not only has it caught me off guard the first time I saw the movie, every time I watch the movie, I am surprised by the level of anger she has.
Yeah, she still has. Yeah.
You son of a bitch. I never made one of these when you were still responding because I was so mad at you for leaving. And then when you went quiet, it seemed like I should live with that decision, and I have.
That stubbornness is exactly Cooper, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's not that I disbelieve any of this. I totally think this is all working. But to me, it's like, look, he might not have told her he was going off to save the planet when he left. Once Professor Brand brought her to NASA, and we assume that she's been there a long time, now she knows that he left to save the world. You know what I mean? So like her level of anger to me is always like, I mean, cut the guy some slack, but she doesn't. That is not how she
doesn't. Well, I mean, kids, you know, they carry that resentment for a long
Absolutely.
time. You know, parents that leave. We know that with John Lennon, right? You know, I was just reading last night about the last meeting he had with his father before his father died, and the primal scream therapy that he subjected his father to all these years later. Still angry about his father leaving, you know?
Yeah.
And then his father dies, so he never got to have that kind of resolution of everything.
And Matthew McConaughey now is just bawling, you know, sobbing uncontrollably.
Today's my birthday. And it's a special one because you told me. You once told me that when you came back, we might be the same age. And today I'm the age you were when you left. So it might be a real good time for you to come back.
And she wipes her face, and we see her reaching for the monitor. And then, which I think is a great cut and surprising and powerful, is we cut to her back on Earth, turning off that monitor, and we're suddenly not in space anymore.
I love that the first time we see Murph leave a message is her cracking at the end about wanting him back. Because her saying that now would be a good time for you to come back.
Yeah.
Even the son of a bitch was the defensive like emotion. And, you know, Coop's kids all got that, I think. And so and then eventually thaws by the end of the message and reveals her tears and sadness still that's there. Because I don't think she's mad that her dad left now anymore. I think it's more a sadness, a tragic sadness to it all that her father left. But she can't convey that emotionally because I imagine she's been through a lot of fucking drama about this anger in her relationships with other people and in her friendships, you know. And so she's still not ready to resolve it. And even later, when she wants to know the truth about whether he knew, which would make the betrayal even more worse, that he knew and didn't tell her that it was a futile mission, you know? So there's so much going on.
You know what? I never quite thought of it this way before, but you know what I think is an important thing for all of us to keep in mind is to separate the anger out that has its origins in love. The only reason that Murph is angry with him is because she loves him and wants him there. You know, that's fundamentally different from the anger that comes from, you know, you did this horrible thing to me.
Yeah. Welcome to a Latino family, bro. That's what it is. It is always separating the anger from the love because people always mistake our passion for anger.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that the reason what is the cause of Murphy's anger is that she loves her father so much.
That's what I'm saying to you.
Okay.
People think we're being angry, but we're actually coming from a place of love. It just comes out looking like anger is what I'm trying to say. Because Latinos always get accused of being angry and passionate and aggressive. But most of the times when we're being that way, we're coming from a place of love. We just don't have the emotional vocabulary to put that in motion.
We're probably saying the same thing from sort of different directions. Is like It's like I had a friend, and I won't go into any of the details, but he was very upset about something someone else had done to me, and then he apologized because he was like, I don't want, because he didn't want, he felt he was getting in the middle of a thing in a personal relationship that I won't go into.
Yeah.
And I said, no, and he said, I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't have said that. I've wanted to say it forever and I shouldn't have brought it up and I'm sorry. And I was like, no, it's fine. Because I know your upset entirely comes out of the fact that you love me. Like,
Right.
and you want to protect me. Like Murph's upset is because she loves him.
Yes,
you know?
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're back on Earth, and it ends up that Professor Brand was watching Murph leave this message.
I didn't mean to intrude. It's just that I've never seen you in here before.
I've never been in here before.
We now see that he's in a wheelchair, and she's pushing him in the wheelchair.
I talk to Amelia all the time. It helps. I'm glad you've started.
I haven't. I just had something I needed to get out.
I know they're still out.
I know.
I don't know that Professor Brand knows they're still out there. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's such a character where you have to continually revise what you think about him.
I also want to ask you something. He's wearing the exact same fucking clothes he wore at the beginning. Yes, he's wearing the light blue button-down shirt and the khaki pants. And so is he one of these guys like Seth Brendel, Dr. Seth Brendel, who like wears the same clothes every day so it's economy of effort. He doesn't have to change his clothes, you know? And so I wonder about that. Yeah.
So
one of the scientists.
I didn't notice that at all. And I'm so glad you brought it up. And I believe I can answer this 100% accurately.
Oh, okay.
Because do you remember why Seth Brendel says that who he got the idea from to always wear the same clothes?
Einstein?
It's Einstein. So
yes.
now that you say this movie has Einstein everywhere. So I am certain that they came up with this exact same idea for the same reason Seth did. Einstein didn't want to waste the energy to change his clothes. Neither does Professor Brand. And now we're in like a library with all sorts of books and chalkboards, and we're talking about communications and why things are not getting through.
Back to the fourth iteration. Let's run it through some new fields.
With respect, Professor, we've tried that hundreds of times.
It only has to work once. Murph.
It gets so weird when you go like, but Brand is lying to them, you know? It's so is he just making her do busy work over and over again?
You know how it is, man. And this applies to human beings. Once the lie keeps going and they don't pay the consequence for it, and everything is constructed around it, it is incredibly impossible to admit that you were lying. And so you have to hold up and at some point you start to believe the lie, you know? I think in a way, and I'm not trying to excuse anything here, so I'm walking to a minefield when I say this, as I tend to do, but like, I don't know how much by the end OJ believed he killed Nicole or not. Do you know what I'm saying? And because I believe he did it, but I think because he got away with it, and then for years kept saying he didn't do it, that he actually started to believe it. And that's actually what happens sometimes is people just believe the lie until they finally fucking get caught. And then it becomes the whole, let me break down for sympathy and all of that. So, but yeah, this is horrific. What he's kind of the villain of the piece in a lot of ways without knowing he's the villain of the piece until you rewatch the movie.
For being sweet and lovely and kind and liking Dylan Thomas poems. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Because I would argue he did go gently into that good night by telling a lie this massive. I would argue that, but yeah.
I don't think there's anything gentle about it, but yes.
Well, his demeanor is what I mean. But yes.
You're right. He was very gentle in his demeanor. And then, as Murph is working on the equations, something occurs to her.
For years, we've been trying to solve the equation without changing the underlying assumption about time.
And
That means each iteration is an attempt to prove its own proof. It's recursive, it's nonsensical.
are you calling my life's work nonsense, Murph?
No, I'm saying that you've been trying to finish it with one arm. No, with both arms tied behind your back. And I don't understand why.
She's starting to figure it out.
Yep.
You know.
And he immediately gets out of there.
Yep.
Son of a bitch.
I'm an old man, Murph. Can we take this point up at another time? I want to talk to my daughter.
And Murph is suspicious. Like, I don't think it's an accident. Nolan cuts back to her, and she's watching him, and she's just like, what?
Stepping out into the universe We must confront the reality of interstellar travel.
And then we cut to Brand listening because this is obviously the message that he sent her.
We must reach far beyond our own lifespans. We must think not as individuals, but as a species.
And then he goes into the poem.
Do not go gentle into that good night.
It is so crazy how that poem becomes first like a little distasteful and then almost tortures you when you hear it later on.
Yep, agreed.
So, and now we're back into what would be on the Enterprise, a briefing room meeting, where we're all sitting down, we explain the situation, we know that we've lost a lot of years, we have 2 prospects left, but we also lost a lot of fuel, which means that if we could either go to both of these planets and not have enough fuel to go home, or we can only go to one of these planets if we're going to go home. And now the question is, which planet?
They're both promising. Edmund's letter is better, but Dr. Mann is the one still transmitting. So.
We've no reason to suspect Edmund's data would have soured. His world has key elements to sustain human life.
As does Dr. Mann's.
She's thinking it through, and then Brand kind of aggressively states her opinion.
Cooper, this is my field. And I really believe Edmund's is the better prospect.
Why?
And her reasoning is it's the proximity to Gargantua. It's not as close as Miller's planet, but it still would be affected by that, and that's going to make it a less hospitable place to be.
You once said that Dr. Mann was the best of us.
He's remarkable, and we're only here because of him.
And yet here he is. He's on the ground, and he's sending a very unambiguous message telling us to come to his planet.
Granted, but Edmund's data is more promising.
We should vote.
Which again, it's sort of this like, Coop is sort of in charge in some ways, but it isn't, there's never a clear hierarchy on this ship, you know?
True.
Well, if we're going to vote, there's something you should know. Brand, he has a right to know.
That has nothing to do with it.
What does?
She's in love with Wolf Edmonds.
Now, boy, I think Coop made a lot of that one little look back in the other scene, but in fact, this is true.
Is that true?
Yes. And that makes me want to follow my heart. But maybe we've spent too long trying to figure all this out with theory.
And now we're going to go into some stuff that I'm going to say is leaving some science pretty far behind.
But I think this is an interesting moment too, because she feels betrayed by him to a degree, because he's essentially putting her business out in the street and using it in a way, because there's little mannerisms that McConaughey is doing when Brand is explaining herself, like looking away and looking like these little mannerisms of, I'm not listening to you because no matter what you say, I know that you're being influenced by your love for Edmonds. And so he tosses that out there and calling for a vote. It's almost slightly manipulative what he's doing here to kind of embarrass her.
Romilly calls for the vote, not Cooper.
Romilly calls for the vote. So, which is interesting. And then that spurs Coop to throw this out there, to kind of maybe influence the vote to a degree, So it's fascinating to see how these emotional machinations go down in these back and forths.
Let me ask you this question. Is Cooper right to bring this up?
Yes.
Her affection for Edmund?
Yes. But because Edmonds is one of the planets, and so it could affect her decision. You have to err in that situation on, as long as we have all the information, whatever the vote is, but we did it knowing we had all the information. So I always think it's better to have all the information so you make a more educated vote,
I think he is 100% correct to bring this up, and as evidenced by the fact that what she says next.
When I say that love isn't something we invented, it's observable, powerful. It has to mean something.
Because of that line, we know that love is absolutely a factor in why she's saying we should go to Edmund's planet.
Yeah.
So if Cooper didn't bring it up, it would have been a huge mistake, except if he didn't bring it up and they did go to Edmund's planet, Romilly would be alive and they would have enough fuel to make it back to Earth.
Yeah.
because Edmund's planet, because they shouldn't go to Dr. Man's planet.
Right. With all the stuff that happens. Yeah, exactly. But I do think this is where the movie changes. This whole mini monologue that she does about love, the exchange, I guess not a mini monologue, the exchange she has with Coop about love is what leads Coop all the way back around to Murph later on in the movie. So it's like this is an important exchange that they're having here at literally the midpoint of the movie.
Yeah, I have two feelings about it. One is as a plant, as a getting your brain set in this idea, as a reaffirmation of the linkage between Cooper and Murph and how that goes across time and space. This is a great setup for all of that.
Yeah.
As science, I'm not as fond of it, but I want to read what it's. But the dialogue is great.
Love has meaning, yes. Social utility, social bonding, child rearing.
We love people who have died. Where's the social utility in that?
None.
Totally disagree. That is not true. There's tremendous social utility in maintaining love for people who died.
Can you explain?
Yes, in ways you and I have both experienced. My dad and your dad still live in our lives. They affect decisions we make. I am sure you've had moments, I had too, where I thought, oh, if I did that, my dad would be disappointed, but that's not what my dad would do. They have total effect. There's so much about, like, imagine the alternative is like, you love this person deeply, and the moment they die, that love goes away. There's so many things we do about continuity, thinking of our ancestors. Ethics are passed on generationally. There's all sorts of societies where revering your ancestors goes back generations and generations. The whole way your family exists is in a continuity between the previous generations and the future generations. So no, I think love for those who died has tremendous social utility, without question.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe it means something more, something we can't yet understand. Maybe it's some evidence, some artifact of a higher dimension that we can't consciously perceive.
I think for a scientist to say this is it's off the charts wacky,
Okay.
Like particularly because what we're talking about here is we're going to balance the fate of the Earth on this decision, the human race. And she's going, well, maybe there's something from other dimensions that has to do with love. And I'm like, that is not good evidence. She says,
I'm drawn across the universe to someone I haven't seen in a decade, who I know is probably dead. Love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space.
That's a lot of stuff. But it totally, in terms of the movie, it's great. I'm not criticizing in terms of the movie. I just don't believe it in terms of science.
Well, it's the thing that people find most divisive about the movie. Kind of doing research for our conversation, I went back and read some reviews. And some of the reviews of people who didn't like the movie don't like that it hinges on love. They really think it's a betrayal of the scientific approach to the movie. And I think it's fair for people to feel that way, obviously, because people are entitled to their opinion. But I understand it can be divisive, but that's one of the reasons why I love the movie. Because for all the shit you can explain, blah, 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 one of the most unexplainable things is love. And you can't quantify it or understand it fully or understand its motivations or why it leads us to do one thing or the other. And you talk about social utility of people who've died. It's the love for the people that died that influence our lives, both positively and negatively, and how we function. And so her spitting this all out, I know that it's a contentious back and forth for people who watch the movie, but I kind of buy it. Because she seems like there's more going on. Ant's performance has much more going on than you think. Even the way she's looking at her father's messages, she isn't looking at her father's messages with any kind of like love or care or whatever. She's just kind of hearing it, right? And so this idea of her connection with Edmonds is another element of this that maybe she was still exploring before he took off and had to go on this mission that he volunteered to go on, that man sent them on. And so it's still an unexplainable thing to her. So now, after the loss of Doyle, after seeing Romilly the way he is and how affectionate she was for him, she's come to this place where, like, this could be something to consider. But I hear you, Steve. It's a divisive thing. So, does it make sense? Maybe not science-wise, but It's as unexplainable as anything else in the universe, you know.
I have no objections to this scene at all. I think it's a great scene. I think it's
but you're saying,
scene
but
in
you have
movie.
an objection that a scientist would say this, and I think she's
No.
the kind of person. Okay, what did you say?
That's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying it's bad science. I think it's entirely motivated. My way I look at things is like, well, is this motivatable for this character at this time? Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Right.
This makes sense for her to say this thing.
Right.
And I also think in terms of the film, the main movers of this story are fifth dimensional creatures who exist across time and space and manipulate gravity, and I can't begin to understand them. And I know the way the movie is structured is that the way those strange five-dimensional creatures saved the human race was by finding a father and a daughter and connecting them through time, through love. That is what this movie is about. And so the fact that we're talking about that at this moment is thematically linked to the entire movie. What I'm saying is that people, and this is, confirmation bias, which is what people do all the time. I feel this strongly. Therefore, the universe must be telling me to do this thing. That is this thing that gets humans into trouble all the time. So she is going, I feel this strong feeling of love to say,
God, I have to disagree with you because I mean, those things are also get humans out of trouble all the time. Those are the things that also, and sometimes not.
Absolutely.
Yes, but you're
they're
saying
not scientific
quantifiably.
proof. No, but that's exactly the point. Is that if you go like whether it is believing that Germany has a destiny to rule the world, or believing that believing that I am destined to be a movie star, or believing that I feel for this person, so they must love me and as well. That's where people do. We are often swayed by those things. They're extremely powerful feelings, and sometimes they are correct, but they are not things that I would trust science to go like say. Therefore, this is how we're going to colonize a planet. That doesn't make sense. You got a lot of thoughts. I can see all the thoughts.
Because I mean, those are things that motivate Mother Teresa to be Mother Teresa, or Lincoln to be Lincoln, or yes, a great actor like McConaughey to become an actor, or Christopher Nolan to become a director. I'm destined to do this. I believe I'm destined to be this. So I think there are way more examples of it working positively than negatively. And the other side of it is, it's just to me, I hear what you're saying about the science aspect, and maybe because I'm not a science person, to me, I find it just as logical as any science, because people do science all the time and they're like, oh shit, we were following the science. We didn't plan on this. We didn't see this. We were following all the formulas and they still fuck up. So that's
but science you can learn. But science you can learn.
But science fucks up all the time.
All the time. But what science does is they look at the fuck up.
It's just as logical as love to me when I look at science. It's just as logical as love. Yeah.
But the difference is that with science, you go like, okay, we fucked up. What happened? It's like, oh, the O-ring on the space shuttle got iced up and that led to the explosion. We're going to fix the O-rings. The door on the Apollo mission got sealed and they couldn't get out. We're going to fix the door. Science can examine the problem, find the answers, and then you redo the experiment. And so science, and science can be peer reviewed. I do your experiment. I did it exactly what you did. It didn't work out the same way. Therefore, your theory is not correct. Now we need to find a theory that works. We can't do that with I feel this. And the thing about, I absolutely agree that directors like Christopher Nolan maybe felt that they had a special destiny, or Arnold felt he had a special destiny, or Ronald Reagan, or whatever. I believe that's all totally true. But what is the percentage of people that show up in LA believing that they have a special destiny in Hollywood that it isn't true for? So so you're looking at a sample set of the very, very few who it ends up working out for against the thousands and thousands where it doesn't. And so the feeling, and it's not that I'm what?
What are the reasons? Did you work hard enough? Did you really put yourself in the right position? Did you take advantage of all the things those are all the situations that have nothing to do with the motivation that inspired you to become this.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Those are the scientific things. Is the feeling that I have a special destiny, therefore I should do this, does not mean that's going to work. It is all the other stuff that means it's going to work. So it's like her whether or not she feels in love with Edmondson, that's drawing her to that planet, to me is entirely immaterial to all the other factors that we can quantify and measure. in this
Yeah.
circumstance, you know?
So you
Like,
think they
anyway.
were right to vote to go to Mans?
Well, they were obviously wrong because Mann is a psychopath.
Well, I mean,
but,
no, I mean, yeah,
but no, in
it's-
this,
yeah.
based on the information that we have, I
Yeah.
believe that Brand's, because Coop feels he wants to go back home and be with his family. Like
Right.
the just the looking at how you feel. Our feelings are, this gets into a much bigger thing. Our feelings are incredibly powerful and incredibly
Yes.
useful and absolutely can point us in the right direction, but they can also easily point us in the wrong direction and
Sure.
frequently do, you know. That's why I go like, well, if the feeling isn't scientific, you know, and I'm not going to risk the future of humanity on somebody's feeling, even if it's Captain
Yeah.
Kirk.
Well, you say frequently. That's anyway. Yeah, we won't resolve this for sure. But I think Romilly is
Definitely
actually the one who doesn't, because I think they frequently do send us in the right direction. But Romilly is the person who has no, kind of dog in this hunt, feelings wise, which is what makes him so essential in this whole situation. Because you could argue Coop is, as you said just so well, Steve, earlier, Coop is motivated by getting back to his family, and maybe Brand is motivated by getting to Edmonds. So
Yep.
But
Yeah,
Romilly doesn't.
I'll put it I'll put it a different way. And I know we've been on this a long time, but feeling is a really big and non-specific word. It can mean a lot of things, from the feel of how hard I need to push on this screwdriver to get this script screw to catch. That's a
Yes.
feeling. That's very different from feeling love. We use this word feeling for a lot of things. Not only do I think that our feelings usually steer us in the right direction, I put it probably 95% that our feelings are working for us. When you're driving your car, you're not thinking about driving your car. You're just feeling how to drive the car.
Right.
When you decide like, oh, what do I want to eat? Or how should I do this? Or how long should I cook this? And you're looking at it and you're smelling, you're hearing, that's your feelings. And you're trusting them. You're not timing things down to the scientific thing. That's not how we work at all. Most of the time, our feelings work perfectly to walk us through our lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, we spent far too long on this whole thing.
All right, Cooper. Yes. The tiniest possibility of seeing Wolf again excites me. That doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Honestly, Amelia, it might.
And that's the other point, is that we become untrustworthy when we have strong personal motivations.
But he is the wrong one to be schooling her about it when he's motivated himself. He's as compromised as she is in different ways.
That's what makes it a great scene. Yeah. I agree. And she gets up and leaves. And now we're suddenly back at Earth, looking at more fields burning. And Tom says,
I'm going to lose about a third again. But next year I'm going to work Nelson's farm and I'll make it up.
which is pretty much what Cooper had said about the life of a farmer next year.
Yep.
And Murphy's with them, and we see them, they're eating dinner with Lois.
Will you spend the night? Your room is exactly as you left it. It's ready
need to get back.
My sewing machine is in there, but there's plenty of...
I need to... Too many memories.
Which means Murphy hasn't even really been up in that room since her dad left. Yeah.
Probably not, no.
And neither have the scientists gone to investigate the room with the weird gravity anomaly where they would have found some of the things that Cooper was sending them, probably.
Yeah.
And then Coop coughs.
The dust.
Lois, I have a friend who could look at his lungs.
And Lois reacts to that. And for me, watching it the first time, I didn't think anything of it. But watching it the second time, I realized she hears that, and then she looks over at Tom, and I suddenly realized Tom is preventing her. She knows that that Tom would say no to having a doctor examine their son because they would force them to leave the farm.
Yep. And we see
it
that
is
later on when Topher shows up, right?
Yep.
Topher Grace shows up as the doctor. He's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Back on the ship.
Amelia, I'm sorry.
You were just being objective. Unless you're punishing me for screwing up on Miller's planet.
No, this wasn't a personal decision.
And then this is to your point. She makes exactly the point that you were making before.
If you're wrong, you will have a very personal decision to make. Your fuel calculations are based on a return journey. Strike out on Man's planet, and we'll have to decide whether to return home or push on to Edmonds with Plan B. Starting a colony could save us from extinction.
And she walks towards him, I would say pretty aggressively.
Yeah, she
And
does.
said-
Confrontation.
Yeah.
You might have to decide between seeing your children again
And the future of the human race. I trust you'll be as objective then.
I think she's pissed that he pulled that out on her, and then like she said, and she basically undresses him verbally and saying like, essentially saying, who the fuck were you to call me out? Because you're just as compromised as I am, and we'll see what decision you make when the time comes about love and all this kind of stuff. So I think she's totally fair to call him out, 100%.
I totally agree. Not only do I totally agree, but I think he shows his lack of objectivity later in the movie, and we'll get
Yes.
to that moment. And now we're at a hospital where we see Topher Grace, who plays
Yay.
Getty, who is a doctor, and also we kind of find out as Murphy's probably love interest.
Yeah, I think there's certainly feelings here, and
Yeah.
Topher has that energy of a guy who isn't going to push too far with her, but will take whatever she's willing to give him.
I think he sits perfectly in the pocket for this character, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And we know immediately what's going on. The professor is in a hospital bed. She sits down next to us, and he says,
All those years, I asked you to have faith. I wanted you to believe that your father would come back.
and I think Murph straight up lies to him and says,
I do, Professor.
Forgive me, Murph.
There's nothing to forgive.
and this is what we've been talking about this whole time.
I lied, Murph. I lied to you. There was no need for him to come back. There was no way to help us.
But Plan A, all these people.
And he just shakes his head. And I think for Murphy, she was already close to figuring this out on her own.
Yes.
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 Because she doesn't ask for any detail. She says,
Did my father know?
and then even more vulnerably,
Did he leave me?
and Professor Brand replies with,
Do not go. Just
and I'm just like, stop saying that fucking poem.
I know, right? So this is such a horrible thing for Murphy to experience all over again. As I said earlier, the betrayal of another male figure in power.
Yeah,
Another
I hadn't thought of
father
it that way. Totally right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Another male figure, another father figure as well in power, who she had grown to trust, spent all these years learning at the foot of, just like she had done the first, 10, 12 years she was alive, at the foot of Cooper. And, all the things that Cooper didn't teach her, like the Einstein's theories and all of that he was saying he didn't have a chance to teach her. It was Professor Brand who taught her all this stuff. And to realize on his deathbed, which is the most gutless way to do this, to reveal the lie, to finally come clean, and to not even give her the satisfaction. And look, narratively, of course, it works because you want to have this lingering over the next hour and something of the movie. But like in this moment, to not even admit that, like, did my father know? To not give her that last bit of peace before he goes. Because again, he got his peace, just like Cooper was trying to get his peace before he got off. And but peace, I mean P-E-A-C-E. He got off the planet. Here is Professor Brand telling his lie, telling her the truth about the lie so that he could be at peace before he goes. But he doesn't give her peace before he goes, just like Cooper wasn't able to give Murphy peace before he left to go on his mission. So there's a lot of correlations in this situation with her, which is why you can understand her anger and frustration as she yells out into the cosmos this message that's echoing in over voiceover. And it does add a tension and electricity and a fear of what's going to happen over the next hour and 10 minutes that's left in this movie. And I think it's fantastic. But yeah, in a lot of ways, Professor Brand is the low-key villain of the film or antagonist of the film because of the actions that he takes and the father and daughter that he sacrifices emotionally in the movie,
So first of all, although I, of course, always thought of it as a terrible betrayal, I didn't connect until you just said it, that this is another father figure betraying her. Like, I hadn't quite put that together. And it gave me a totally bizarre thought that I'm just going to share with you, which is that, we're dealing with relativity. And one of the ideas is like, oh, time can be moving different. And one of the things that's happening is that we have these people who are isolated into their realities. Like Romilly is isolated for 23 years in that space. And he has no idea what is going on down on Miller's planet. And on Miller's planet, they're dealing with their experience and the waves and the water and all the craziness. And they have no idea what's going on with Romilly. Right. And for Murph, the only reality she knows is the information she has been given. And so from her perspective, as far as she can tell, Cooper is exactly like Professor Brand and has lied to her and betrayed her in exactly the same way. She has no evidence to tell her anything else, and she has no contact with her father for him to say, no, that's not what happened. And that's and I just kind of got hit with it kind of hard because I'm like, oh, this is all of us. This is all of us live in our world. And when we bump up against someone else, you and I are talking right now, and now I know a little bit about you in this moment. And we're going to end this call, or we're going to end this podcast in a couple of minutes. And then you're going to do your thing and I'm going to do my thing. And then I'm not going to know anything about you anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's us all the time.
Wait, are one of us dying? Wait, it's something you
No,
know.
but time might slow down in San Diego. I don't really know.
I mean, we might text each other before the next episode, I would imagine.
I know, I'm sure, but all I mean is that we live in different realities, and that we can never actually know that, and then we have to act within the world based on the information that we have at hand.
You're so right. Yeah,
and that's all we got.
My office reality is not my outside office reality. That's so true. It's so 100% true. Yeah, for sure.
And then as she's absorbing this terrible lie, we hear this voiceover of a very calm voice from Murph.
Dr. Brand, I'm sorry to tell you that your father died today. He had no pain. He was at peace. I'm very sorry for your loss.
And then she reaches to turn off the transmission. And then she stops himself.
Brand, did you know? He told you, right?
But I love this moment, and I love the performance here from Jessica Chastain. Listen, I tell you guys this all the time. For 10 years on this show, watch the micro emotions of actors. That's when you know they're great. The ones that don't do too much, but it's all in their eyes. Chastain is going through those stages of like care and love for this man who's been her second father, and then the betrayal and the things that and then the anger and pain and frustration that he doesn't answer the question that she asks at the end. It is amazing to watch her work in this film. She's actually someone I didn't like clock the first time I watched the movie, and then watching it this time around, I'm really just kind of blown away by what Jessica does in the film.
You knew this was all a sham.
And now we cut back to the ship, where the voice is echoing in the empty Endurance, because we realize that the Ranger has already left, so no one is hearing this message.
He left us here to suffocate, to starve.
And as those words from Murph are echoing, we watch the Ranger slowly descend to man's planet. And as we're about to meet the apparently remarkable Dr. Mann, I think it is time to end part 2 of our exploration of Interstellar. Of course, we had a lot of thoughts on this one, and we would love to hear yours. Definitely weigh in on this discussion about feelings versus science. We definitely want to hear that. You can visit us on our Facebook page. Just do a search for the Cine-Files, Cine_Files on Twitter, the Cine-Files podcast on Instagram. If you want to subscribe to the show, we'd love you to do it on whatever platform you prefer, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or anything else. Please leave your reviews or your comments if those things are available. We love interacting with you there. We've mentioned patreon.com/the Cine-Files, where you could be listening to ad-free versions of the show, as well as listen to our Cine-Files shorts. We just recorded one on retiring the old guard of directors. Should we put the old guys out to pasture to make room for young people? That short is exclusively on Patreon and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to reach me, I'm at SR Morris on X. John, how would people reach you?
Yeah, you can always follow me at The Rocha Says on all social media, please. And you can head on over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says, where I host a bunch of shows there like the Geek Buddies, the Hot Mic, Spill the Tequila, the Changing Jedi Way, and my reactions, reviews, and all of that happening there on the channel. And of course, our YouTube channel for the Cine-Files. Please remember you subscribe to that one as well, where we do our live shows, or try to do a live show every month. So make sure you do that as well.
And I think that's it for this week. We'll be back next week to continue, possibly conclude our exploration of Christopher Nolan's Interstellar.